tangled, buttressed roots of an ancient strangler fig, the world narrows to a space of profound stillness and earth-scented dark. Here, shielded from the vast, watery expanse of the South American Pantanal, the air is thick, warm, and heavy with the rich aroma of damp soil and organic decay. This subterranean alcove acts as a natural bastion, meticulously chosen by the female jaguar to withstand the seasonal swelling of the floodplain. Outside, the pre-dawn hours of early spring breathe life into a symphony of gentle, rhythmic sounds. A soft, steady patter of distant rainfall taps a gentle cadence upon the towering canopy far above, filtering through layers of glossy leaves before finding its way to the forest floor as a soothing rustle. Beneath this watery veil, the low, continuous drone of nocturnal insects creates a hypnotic, ambient hum, occasionally punctuated by the gentle, lapping splash of rising river water against the elevated banks of the root system. Inside the den, a subtle breeze finds its way through the porous earthen walls and twisting wooden arches, carrying the heavy moisture of the tropical spring. The subterranean cavity maintains a stable, insulated microclimate, a crucial evolutionary adaptation that protects vulnerable newborn life from the unpredictable, fluctuating temperatures of the flooded basin. In this secluded hollow, untouched by the first pale glimmers of dawn breaking across the horizon, the atmosphere is suspended in timeless peace. The gentle rustling of the fig leaves outside and the low vibration of the saturated earth blend together into a lulling backdrop, perfectly cradling the hidden sanctuary in undisturbed tranquility. Within the velvety shadows of the inner den, life stirs with a quiet, miraculous fragility. A tiny, newborn jaguar cub takes its very first breath, a shallow, trembling intake of warm, damp air that expands microscopic lungs for the very first time. Born completely blind and weighing barely 2 pounds, the infant is utterly helpless, navigating its brand new universe through an instinctive reliance on touch, temperature, and smell. Draped over its vulnerable frame is a plush, oversized coat of fur, already patterned with the ghostly impressions of future rosettes. This soft, downy pelage acts as a vital thermal shield in the humid cradle of the earth. Because a newborn's internal thermoregulation is still developing, the cub's survival depends entirely on the steady, radiant furnace of its mother's body and the insulating embrace of the earthen floor. Lacking sight, the tiny apex predator experiences the world as a tapestry of profound sensations. It feels the rhythmic, heavy thud of the maternal heartbeat reverberating through the soil, a steady metronome that mirrors the comforting pulse of the womb left behind. Guided by thermal senses and scent receptors on its tiny snout, the cub instinctively roots against the soft fur of its mother's belly. The mother responds with deep, rumbling purrs that vibrate through the den like a soothing lullaby, encouraging the newborn with gentle, persistent licks of her rough tongue. This maternal grooming stimulates circulation and digestion, anchoring the fragile life to its new reality. Cradled safely in the heart of the flooded wilderness, surrounded by the gentle whisper of rain, the small cub surrenders to the warmth, drifting into a peaceful, restorative sleep. With infinite care, the heavy-bodied female shifts her weight, her large paws moving with a grace that belies her formidable strength. She curls her muscular frame into a protective crescent, encircling the tiny neonate in a living sanctuary of warmth and security. Her thick, spotted coat, adapted over millennia for the dappled light of the South American forest, now serves as an impermeable curtain against the cool, damp air seeping through the root-lined walls. As a seasoned mother, her biological imperatives are finely tuned to the perils of the Pantanal spring. She instinctively nuzzles the infant, pressing her warm nose against its crown to assess its condition. Every motion is deliberate, driven by a profound evolutionary duty to protect her single, highly vulnerable offspring. Because jaguar litters are small, typically 1 to 2 cubs, The investment in this single newborn is absolute. Using the tip of her broad tongue, she continues her methodical grooming, smoothing the downy fur and massaging the delicate skin. This constant licking does far more than clean. It stimulates the cub's nervous system, encouraging vital elimination functions that the newborn cannot yet manage on its own. It is a critical form of early mammalian care, establishing an immediate biochemical bond through scent and touch. She tucks the cub securely beneath the deep fur of her lower chest, shielding it from the subterranean drafts. With a slow, steady exhalation, she blankets her offspring in the comforting, musky scent of her presence, a fragrant marker of safety. Satisfied that her hidden nursery is entirely secure, her breathing deepens, matching the slow, hypnotic rhythm of the distant raindrops filtering through the canopy above. Just inches beyond the arched threshold of the root-vaulted sanctuary, the greater Pantanal undergoes its grand, seasonal transformation. Spring rains arrive not as a sudden deluge, but as a steady, life-giving pulse that awakens the South American floodplain. Swollen by weeks of heavy precipitation across the distant plateaus, the nearby river system rises steadily, spilling over its low banks to reclaim the sprawling savanna. Millions of gallons of cool, nutrient-rich water creep through the gallery forests, spreading across the landscape in a vast, reflective sheet that mirrors the overcast pre-dawn sky. Yet, within the subterranean geometry of the strangler fig's architecture, this ancient hydrological cycle remains a distant, muted phenomenon. The dense network of interlocking roots and compacted alluvial soil forms an elevated redoubt, custom-built by evolutionary architecture to defy the seasonal inundation, while the rising water laps softly against the lower terraces of the root system just outside. The interior floor of the den stays comfortably dry. This annual flood is the beating heart of the Pantanal ecosystem, driving reproductive cycles across countless species. Fish migrate into the newly flooded forests to spawn, while caimans and wading birds find rich feeding grounds in the expanding shallows. For the apex predator, however, high water demands strategic seclusion. By selecting this elevated subterranean cavity, the mother ensures her newborn remains safe from the swirling currents. Inside the chamber, the rising humidity outside translates only to a heavy, damp warmth, thick with the earthy scent of wet bark and rich humus. The cub rests entirely insulated from the surrounding aquatic expansion, cradled securely in the center of the flooded world, yet untouched by its tide. Tucked safely away from the rising waters, the tiny cub finds its anchor in a steady, rhythmic cadence that fills the damp chamber. Pressed close against the soft fur of its mother's belly, the newborn absorbs the deep, resonant thrum of a resting heartbeat. In these fragile first hours of life, this sound is the ultimate sanctuary, a biological metronome signaling safety, warmth, and steady survival. Mammalian biology dictates a profound vulnerability at birth, especially for an apex predator whose senses are not yet fully awake. Born blind and entirely dependent, the cub's eyes remain sealed beneath dark, velvet lids. Yet nature compensates with acute tactile and olfactory awareness. Guided entirely by warmth and scent, the newborn instinctively nuzzles forward, locating the nourishment it needs to fuel its rapid early growth. Each gentle swallow brings a vital surge of rich, maternal milk, strengthening a frame designed one day to command the floodplains. With meticulous devotion, the mother arches her muscular body around her offspring, forming a living perimeter against the chill of the pre-dawn air. Her large, rough tongue rasps rhythmically over the cub's damp fur in long, soothing strokes. This instinctive grooming does more than clean. It stimulates circulation, enhances bonding, and imprints the comforting maternal scent deep into the cub's awakening consciousness. Outside the earthen walls, the soft splash of the creeping river and the drone of nocturnal insects continue their timeless lullaby. But within the quiet hollow of the roots, The world narrows to simple, profound essentials, the steady rise and fall of a massive flank, the comforting weight of a protective limb, and the deep, abiding warmth of a mother's embrace. Here, in the heart of the resting wilderness, all is still, safe, and profoundly at peace. Gradually, the ambient chorus begins to shift. High above the tangled crown of the strangler fig, the persistent drone of nocturnal insects softens, yielding to the tentative, waking notes of dawn-singing birds. A faint, pearlescent gray filters down through the dense layers of canopy and winding roots, dissolving the absolute blackness of the subterranean den into soft shadows. Exhausted by the labor of birth and the quiet vigilance of the night, the mother jaguar relaxes her posture. Her heavy head rests gently across her outstretched paws, though her ears remain finely tuned to the rustling leaves and the gentle lapping of the river just beyond the threshold. Her breathing slows, syncing with the calm, even rhythm of the tiny life tucked against her chest. In this peaceful lull before full daylight, the cub settles into a deeper, restorative sleep. Energy conservation is critical for a newborn mammal, allowing metabolic processes to channel every calorie into cellular growth and neural development. Wrapped in the secure cocoon of maternal warmth, the infant's tiny frame rises and falls with each quiet breath. Outside the earthen sanctuary, the vast flooded pantanal stirs under the morning mist. But deep within the hidden chamber beneath the roots, time stretches slow and still. Guarded by the damp earth and embraced by unwavering devotion, mother and cub rest together in absolute tranquility, cradled by the gentle pulse of the awakening wilderness. High above the tangled roots of the pantanal, dawn arrives not with a sudden burst of gold, but as a slow, diffusing wash of silver gray. Soft canopy drips rhythmically punctuate the damp morning air, each droplet falling through layers of emerald foliage to strike the newly flooded understory below. A gentle river current laps quietly against the earthen banks, while the low, steady drone of waking insects weaves a continuous, lulling hum through the dense rainforest. Deep within a shadowed cavity beneath the buttressed roots of a strangler fig, time moves differently. Here, untouched by the rising spring floodwaters, a newborn jaguar cub rests in profound stillness. Weighing barely 2 pounds, the infant is entirely blind, its eyes sealed shut against the sudden brightness of the outside world. Instead of light, the cub experiences its very first morning through a rich tapestry of touch and smell. Without the gift of sight, the tiny predator relies on specialized tactile whiskers, mestacial vibrissae, to map its immediate, dark sanctuary. Every breath is guided by the damp scent of rich alluvial soil, decaying organic matter, and the familiar, comforting musk of maternal warmth. The cub's world is one of profound intimacy, anchored entirely by physical contact and the slow, rhythmic beating of a distant heart. Distant birdsong filters softly through the earthen walls, a gentle acoustic backdrop to the newborn's first quiet moments of life, as the forest breathes deeply and settles into the gentle warmth of a new day. Deprived of vision, the newborn's nervous system prioritizes touch and olfaction to interpret its fragile universe. Millions of sensitive receptors cluster along the tiny pink nose and sensitive paw pads, transforming the damp earth and woven roots of the den into a detailed mental map. The cub's world smells intensely of rich, decomposing leaf litter, fresh spring rain, and the unmistakable, deeply reassuring scent of mother. Every surface tells a story of survival. The rough texture of the sheltering roots provides a secure boundary, while the residual heat trapped within the maternal nest maintains the infant's delicate core temperature. Because newborn felids cannot yet regulate their own body heat, this thermal refuge is vital for metabolic conservation. Softly, The mother's warm, abrasive tongue sweeps across the cub's spotted fur. This gentle grooming does more than clean. It stimulates circulation, triggers digestion, and imprints the mother's unique chemical signature deep into the infant's developing senses. Each rhythmic stroke reinforces a primal bond, teaching the tiny predator the exact contours of safety. Guided by these invisible currents of scent and tactile warmth, the cub nuzzles deeper into the soft hollow, resting securely in the quiet heart of the ancient forest. Contented in the shadowed hollow, the tiny cub surrenders to the steady cadence of maternal care. With eyes still sealed against the dawn, the infant relies entirely on touch, drifting toward the deep, rhythmic thrum of the mother's heartbeat. Following these vibrations, the cub instinctively finds its place against her warm, fur-lined flank. The mother bends her massive head, her movements impossibly gentle for an apex predator. She guides the newborn toward her belly, where the rich nourishment of her milk awaits. Nursing brings an immediate wave of tranquility. As the cub feeds, its tiny body relaxes completely, drawing vital calories and antibodies that fuel its rapid early development. This heavy metabolic demand requires enormous energy from the mother, yet she remains perfectly still, anchoring her newborn in a cocoon of unconditional safety. When feeding concludes, she begins again, sweeping her warm, raspy tongue in slow, methodical arches across the infant's back. This rhythmic licking acts as an external stimulus, prompting the young animal's immature digestive and circulatory systems to function properly while reinforcing their vital scent bond. Every stroke imparts the mother's distinct signature, an invisible armor of familiar musk that the cub will recognize anywhere. Wrapped in the enveloping warmth of her body, the small creature lets out a soft, contented sigh. The den grows hushed and still, cradled in the quiet peace of the flooded forest. Outside, the world awakens, but within this hidden sanctuary, time slows down completely, measured only by the steady rise and fall of the mother's breath and the peaceful slumber of the newborn. Yet, even as the deep silence holds the den, a profound biological reality begins to stir within the resting mother. Producing nutrient-dense milk for her growing infant imposes an immense metabolic demand upon her formidable frame. Her body requires a constant, heavy intake of protein and energy to sustain lactation during this pivotal spring season. Slowly, the heavy cadence of her breathing shifts. She lifts her massive head from the nest of leaves, her amber eyes scanning the shadowed perimeter of the hollow with absolute, quiet alertness. Every muscle in her sleek shoulder blades flexes beneath her rosette-patterned coat as she assesses the absolute safety of the immediate environment. She breathes deeply, drawing in the humid morning air to test the shifting currents for any hint of approaching peril. With utmost caution, she disengages from the tiny, slumbering form beside her. She pauses for one final moment, nudging the newborn gently with her muzzle to ensure the infant is settled securely against the deepest wall of the cavity. Satisfied, she turns her attention toward the threshold, where the rising spring floodwaters lap quietly against the roots of the den. The call of the hunt is an ancient, unyielding requirement of survival in the flooded wilderness, pulling her toward the murky shallows just beyond the protective canopy. She slips through the low opening of the cavity without a sound, her body gliding fluidly into the water like a falling shadow. The rising spring floodwaters swallow her motion instantly, leaving behind only the faintest ripple against the submerged roots. Outside, the dense understory of the South American rainforest fully awakens. A steady, soft canopy drip punctuates the humid air, blending with the low, continuous drone of waking insects and the distant, melodic calls of early rising birds. Inside the shadowed den, the sudden absence of the mother's massive form creates a brief, cool draft across the floor of damp leaves. Deprived of the radiating furnace of her body, the newborn instinctively reacts to conserve its vital core temperature. The tiny cub shifts, its delicate limbs drawing inward until it is curled into a tight, compact ball against the deepest, most secure wall of the hollow. This curled posture minimizes exposed surface area, a vital thermal adaptation that preserves precious metabolic warmth while the juvenile nervous system continues its rapid, hidden development in the dark. Completely blind to the emerging dawn, the infant rests peacefully in the heavy gloom. Its rapid, shallow breathing slows into a steady, rhythmic cadence, perfectly synchronized with the gentle, distant current of the river outside and the rustling of leaves stirred by the morning breeze. Safe within the sheltered embrace of the earth, the small predator slumbers deeply, wrapped in the rich, earthy scents of wet soil and decaying vegetation that mark its very first home. Outside the earthen hollow, the flooded Pantanal reaches its full morning chorus. A gentle river current laps rhythmically against the submerged buttress roots of ancient trees, creating a low, soothing cadence that reverberates softly through the damp ground. High above in the emerald canopy, the soft canopy drip of overnight rain continues, sending crystalline droplets splashing onto broad, waxy leaves with delicate, measured ticks. An insect drone swells steadily in the warming, humid air, a steady vibration that weaves together with distant bird song echoing across the waterlogged terrain. Each natural voice rises and fades, blending into the rich acoustic tapestry of the waking ecosystem. Yet, within the quiet sanctuary of the den, these vibrant outdoor sounds are muted, softened by the thick layers of soil and shadowed roots into a gentle, lulling hum. The cub remains deeply asleep, cradled by the quiet dark. In this earliest stage of life, rest is the primary engine of biological growth. While the infant slumbers, rapid cell division and neural pathways continue to form beneath the velvety fur, fueled by the rich milk of its mother and the vital warmth conserved by its tight, curled posture. Every slow, steady breath draws in the complex, earthy perfume of the flooded forest, wet soil, rich humus, and fresh vegetation, subconsciously mapping the boundaries of its world before the eyes have even opened. Wrapped in this cocoon of shadows and sound, the tiny predator rests securely. The rhythms of the wild world outside cradle the den in profound peace, promising safety, warmth, and the quiet continuation of life in the heart of the southern rainforest. In the quiet heart of the neotropical forest, as the spring afternoon begins its slow, golden descent, the heavy canopy softens. Low-angled rays of sunlight filter gently down through the dense layers of emerald foliage, casting long, peaceful shadows across a quiet clearing near the edge of a slow-moving backwater. A soft canopy drip falls rhythmically from a broad leaf above, joining the distant, steady hum of cicadas and the subtle rustle of dry leaves stirred by a gentle breeze. Deep within this hidden sanctuary, sheltered beneath the sprawling, buttressed roots of an ancient strangler fig, lies a secluded nursery den. Here, cradled against the cool, damp earth of the riverbank, a mother jaguar rests in total stillness. Beside her, tucked safely within the warm curve of her spotted flank, lies her newborn cub. Until this quiet moment, the infant's world has been entirely shaped by touch, warmth, and scent. For the first 10 to 14 days of life, a jaguar's eyelids remain firmly sealed, protecting delicate developing optics from the harshness of the outside world. The cub has navigated this subterranean home relying solely on sensitive vibrissae and the comforting rhythm of its mother's heartbeat. Now, on the threshold of a profound biological milestone, that purely tactile existence stands ready to transform. The late afternoon light reaches further into the shadowed interior of the den than it has before, painting amber-hued patterns upon the dark soil. Inside those tiny, tightly shut eyes, neurological pathways have matured. preparing the infant's brain to receive its very first glimpse of the living forest. A subtle twitch disturbs the fine, downy fur around the infant's face. From deep within the developing optic centers of the brain, a quiet physiological command triggers the tiny muscles of the eyelids. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the seams begin to part. The right eye opens first by a fraction of a millimeter, followed moments later by the left, lifting the biological veil that has guarded the cub's vision since birth. Revealed to the dim interior of the den are eyes of a striking, milky blue shade. At this delicate stage of development, the iris lacks the concentrated melanin and pigment sharpness that will eventually mature into a rich, golden amber. The incoming light is diffuse and gentle, filtered through the damp shadows of the strangler fig's roots, ensuring the sensitive retinas are not overwhelmed. Where once there was only the familiar comfort of heat and the soft topography of scent, a brand new dimension quietly blooms. The subterranean world transitions from a landscape known purely through touch into a soft focused array of hazy shapes and contrasting gradients. The dark, textured earth of the den floor materializes as a patchwork of deep charcoal and muted gray. Beside the awakening infant, a massive, comforting contour emerges from the shadows, the gentle, spotted curve of the mother's flank. There are no sharp lines yet, only a soothing collection of organic forms and shifting shadows, inviting the young predator to begin interpreting the visual expanse of the living earth. Out of the hazy, blue-tinted fog of this newly discovered visual world, a singular form begins to resolve. Until this very moment, the mother has been a tapestry of warmth, a steady drumbeat beneath the ribs, and a comforting scent of musky earth and milk. Now, neurological pathways fire in rapid, wondrous succession, bridging the gap between tactile memory and visual recognition. The infant's gaze travels upward along the sweeping slope of the resting flank. Within the hazy field of vision, distinct patterns begin to take shape against the golden tan fur. The iconic rosette markings of the Jaguar, dark, velvety rosettes framing lighter centers, materialize as soft, undulating patches of shadow and light. In the dim light of the den, these ancient camouflage markings do not yet spell out the fierce architecture of an apex predator. Instead, they appear as a constellation of gentle, reassuring shapes. The mother shifts slightly, a massive, graceful movement that displaces the cool air of the roots. As she turns her head toward her offspring, two large, luminous eyes reflect the faint amber glow filtering down from the entrance above. The cub stares into this familiar visage, perhaps recognizing the contour of her brow and the patient, watchful curve of her jawline. This initial visual pairing cements a profound layer of attachment. The primitive instincts of touch and sound are now reinforced by sight, creating a multi-sensory map of security. Bathed in the low, rhythmic purr vibrating through the den floor, the infant feels an anchoring wave of calm, resting safely within the visible embrace of its mother's spotted coat. Encouraged by this newfound clarity and the steady hum of maternal reassurance, a sudden surge of neurological activity ripples through the infant's developing nervous system. The tiny body shifts, gathering its weight over four undersized, trembling legs. Slowly, the cub pushes upward, rising above the soft contours of the nursing nest for the very first time. Gravity feels remarkably heavy in these initial moments. The small limbs are still somewhat weak, lacking the dense muscle mass that will one day propel this apex predator through dense undergrowth and swift-flowing rivers. As the paws meet the damp, cool soil of the den floor, they slip slightly on the packed earth. Balance is a delicate negotiation between the inner ear and the newly awakened visual cortex, requiring thousands of neurons to fire in precise, unpracticed harmony. Every micro-movement is an exercise in spatial distance. The walls of the subterranean hollow, once known only through the gentle press of fur and the echoing reverberation of purring, now present themselves as towering, shadowy barriers of exposed roots and dark loam. Each clumsy, uncoordinated step forward is a triumph of motor skill development. The cub wobbles to the left, corrects to the right, and pauses, letting out a tiny, breathy sigh of concentration. A few inches away from the safety of the maternal flank feels like a vast expanse. Yet, anchored by the low-frequency rumble vibrating through the earth, the small explorer continues its brief, halting journey across the nursery floor, tasting the cool, humid air with a slightly parted pink maw, sensing the precarious wobble of tiny, unsteady limbs drifting too far from the safety of the hollow. The mother jaguar stirs with fluid, practiced grace. She does not rise, but rather extends a single, heavy foreleg, a velvet-wrapped pillar of muscle and quiet authority. With infinite gentleness, she loops her large paw around the wandering infant, using a soft, deliberate sweep of her padded toes to redirect the explorer. The nudge is firm enough to guide, yet light enough to respect the fragile bounds of infancy, easing the hesitant cub back toward the radiating heat of her spotted belly. To anchor the overwhelmed senses of her newborn, she adjusts her breathing. Deep within her chest, a low-frequency, rumbling purr begins to build, a biological frequency vibrating right around 25 hertz. This rhythmic purring is a universal language of feline security, known to release oxytocin and soothe the nervous system. As the vibration travels down through her ribcage and directly into the damp earth, it acts as a tactile compass for the cub. The infant feels the steady, reassuring pulse humming through the cool soil, instantly calming the sudden spike of sensory arousal. Nestled once again against the lush fur of her warm flank, the small body relaxes, its trembling legs folding inward. The overwhelming rush of light, shadow, and movement begins to fade into a peaceful haze as the infant's heavy eyelids drift shut. Surrounded by the steady rhythm of maternal respiration, the young predator surrenders to sleep, safe within the quiet sanctuary of the earth. The sensory overload of light and movement gently gives way to profound exhaustion. The infant's newly awakened brain, having processed a lifetime's worth of visual data in mere moments, now requires deep, restorative downtime to consolidate these critical neural pathways. During this phase of rapid neurological growth, active sleep will allow the visual cortex to wire together the newly formed connections between the eyes and the brain. Curled tightly against the mother's expansive belly, the cub finds total sanctuary. Outside the hollow beneath the strangler fig, the late afternoon light softens into the long, purple shadows of evening. A gentle breeze whispers through the canopy, carrying the soft, rhythmic hum of distant cicadas and the subtle, steady water ripple from the nearby backwater. These familiar ambient sounds blend seamlessly with the regular, deep cadence of the mother's breathing. With every slow inhalation and exhalation, her chest rises and falls like a gentle tide, carrying the lingering vibrations of her low-frequency purr. This internal motor hums at a restorative 25 hertz, a frequency scientifically documented to promote tissue regeneration and soothe the nervous system. Safe within this cocoon of warmth, scent, and sound, the young jaguar's breathing deepens. Its tiny paws twitch occasionally as fleeting dreams of light and shadow ripple through its slumber, marking the quiet close of a monumental day and setting the stage for the adventures yet to come. Deep within the shadowed sanctuary of the hollowed-out riverbank, the afternoon heat slowly yields to the cool breath of evening. Within this earthen womb, the air grows still and dim, carrying the rich, damp scent of rich soil and resting fur. Here, nestled safely away from the wider world, a young jaguar infant stirs from a deep daytime sleep. Outside, the brilliant orange light of the sinking sun begins to paint the edges of the floodplain, casting long, lazy shadows across the entrance of the den. Sensing the shift in temperature and the fading of the daylight, the mother jaguar raises her heavy head. Her amber eyes reflect the deepening dusk as she prepares her growing cub for a crucial milestone in its early life. With quiet intention, she rises, her muscular frame moving with fluid grace. She nudges the hesitant infant gently with her warm, velvet muzzle, offering a reassuring stroke of her chin that signals it is time to leave their sheltered retreat. For a growing feline, this threshold marks the beginning of essential sensory development. The transition from the secure darkness of the birth den into the vast, open expanse of the pantanal is navigated entirely under the watchful care of maternal guidance. The infant blinks sleepily, its round blue-gray eyes adjusting to the amber glow filtering through the hanging roots and tall grasses at the den's mouth. Following closely against the protective warmth of its mother's flank, the young cat takes its very first steps toward the wide, muddy banks of the swollen seasonal river, ready to experience the sights and sounds of the wild world waiting just beyond. Leaving the familiar safety of the earthen hollow behind, the pair steps quietly into the damp understory of the floodplain forest. The mother moves with an effortless, measured pace, her spotted coat melting seamlessly into the vertical patterns of shadow and fading light. Close behind her, the infant navigates the winding trail, each step a deliberate exercise in balance and coordination. The forest floor offers an entirely new palette of tactile sensations for the developing cub. Beneath its small, tender paws, the damp earth yields softly, cool and sponge-like from the spring rains. Patches of slick mud give way to brittle layers of fallen leaves, which rustle with a gentle, whispering sound underfoot. The infant pauses frequently, lifting a paw to test the varying textures of rotting wood, velvety moss, and tangled roots that weave across the path. This slow navigation is a vital lesson in habitat awareness. Young jaguars rely heavily on tactile exploration to map their surroundings, building the neural pathways necessary for silent stalking in the future. As the mother winds her way through the dense vegetation, she pauses at intervals, turning her head to check on the small shadow trailing her flank. A low, rumbling purr vibrates softly in her chest, a tactile beacon of reassurance in the deepening gloom. Around them, the air grows heavy with the rich, earthy aromas of decomposing foliage and rising moisture. The canopy above filters the last amber rays of the sunset into a soft, diffused green glow. Every fallen branch and damp fern leaf contributes to the rich sensory tapestry of the river basin, guiding the young feline ever closer to the wide, moving water ahead. Emerging from the dense curtain of riverside vegetation, the mother and infant step out onto the expansive, open margin of the swollen seasonal river. The dense shadows of the forest floor dissolve instantly into a vast, breathtaking panorama. Overhead, the heavy spring canopy falls away, revealing a wide, unobstructed horizon painted in breathtaking strokes of burning orange, deep amber, and soft violet. Before them, the floodplain stretches toward the distant horizon like a tranquil inland sea. The swollen river moves with a slow, powerful grace, its broad surface acting as a liquid mirror for the vibrant evening sky. Shimmering ribbons of golden light ripple across the muddy earth, casting dancing shadows that reach out to touch the infant's paws. For an animal whose world has thus far been defined by the intimate, enclosed darkness of a subterranean den, this sudden exposure to open space is a profound sensory awakening. The cub freezes, its round eyes wide with wonder as it gazes upon the luminous expanse. In developing felines, this early visual and spatial exposure is crucial for expanding the visual cortex, helping the brain adapt to wide, open horizons where future territories will be staked and defended. The mother stands beside her young one, a solid anchor of quiet vigilance against the vastness. She lowers her massive head, gently nudging the infant's shoulder with her warm muzzle, offering a steadying touch as the cool evening breeze sweeps across the muddy bank, carrying the fresh, clean scent of deep water and distant reeds. At the water's edge, the infant takes a cautious half-step forward, drawn entirely to the fluid, mesmerizing movement below. The swollen river whispers against the damp earth, sending tiny, rhythmic ripples washing up onto the dark mud. Each gentle lap of water catches the dying amber light, turning the surface into a shifting mosaic of bronze and shadow. The cub cocks its small head, mesmerized by a drift of pale green reeds floating silently downstream. In young mammals, such sustained visual tracking stimulates vital neural pathways, fine-tuning the connection between eye and paw. Every darting reflection and swirling eddy helps the infant's developing brain map the complex physics of moving water, an essential prelude to the aquatic mastery required of a mature apex predator in the flooded grasslands. Beside the water, the mother remains an unmoving silhouette of pure calm. She settles her heavy frame into the cool earth just inches away, her low, rumbling purr vibrating through the ground to reassure the hesitant cub. A soft evening breeze rustles the tall marsh grass nearby, while the first chorus of calling tree frogs begins to swell from the shallows, adding a steady, hypnotic pulse to the twilight air. Entranced, the infant lowers its small chin toward the surface. It watches a water beetle skim effortlessly across the glassy interface, leaving microscopic V-shaped ripples in its wake. The coolness rising from the river bathes the cub's sensitive whiskers, offering a rich tapestry of organic scents, wet soil, river algae, and the faint metallic tang of spring rain. Safe within the circle of maternal warmth, the young cat absorbs the timeless rhythm of the flowing tide, letting the peaceful motion lull its senses deeper into the quiet embrace of the approaching night. As the final rim of the orange sun dips below the horizon, the acoustic landscape of the Pantanal transforms completely. Across the expansive seasonal floodplains, a rich symphony of sound begins to rise, marking the transition from day to twilight. From the flooded shallows and tangled vegetation, the chorus of calling tree frogs swells into a steady, rhythmic pulse. Hundreds of tiny amphibians harmonize in steady, overlapping chirps, creating a natural auditory blanket that drifts softly across the darkened water. In the high canopy and along the muddy banks, nocturnal insects and hidden birds join the evening orchestra. A soft evening breeze rustles the tall marsh reeds, carrying the vibrant vibrations through the humid air. For the resting infant jaguar, this acoustic richness provides a vital sensory education. Young mammals rely heavily on auditory processing during their formative weeks to map their surroundings, learning to distinguish the harmless background din of the ecosystem from the subtle rustle of potential prey or unseen danger. The mother and infant absorb this immersive environment side by side. Safe in the growing shadows, the cub's ears twitch instinctively toward every new frequency, slowly cataloging the complex notes of its vast wetland home. The steady hum of the evening wetland acts as a natural lullaby, wrapping the young cat in a soothing blanket of sound as the quiet night takes hold. As the twilight deepens into a velvet canopy of indigo and violet, the mother turns slowly away from the water's edge, with a low, resonant rumble vibrating softly in her chest. She offers a gentle nudge of her heavy muzzle against the infant's flank. This tactile cue, practiced instinctively across generations, signals the end of the evening's riverside exploration and the beginning of their safe retreat. The cub, its heavy eyelids fluttering with the delicious onset of sleep, obeys without hesitation. Its tiny paws leave faint impressions in the cooling mud for just a few moments longer before the family crosses the threshold back into the protective embrace of the dense forest shadows. Here, under the tangled boughs of ancient strangler figs and weeping ferns, the ambient temperature dips comfortably, offering a soothing respite from the humid day. Zoologists note that juvenile apex predators process the vast majority of their daily sensory learning during these quiet twilight hours, consolidating new memories while resting. Surrounded by the steady, hypnotic pulsing of tree frogs and the soft whispering of the evening breeze, the infant settles deep into a cushioned bed of dry moss and fallen leaves. The mother curls her muscular frame in a protective crescent around her small charge, shielding the cub from the wider world. Safe, warm, and utterly content, the young jaguar surrenders to a deep, restorative slumber, its rhythmic breathing syncing naturally with the tranquil pulse of the nighttime wetland. The last amber embers of twilight dissolve from the high forest canopy, yielding to the velvety, indigo shadows of the night. Across the vast, seasonal floodplain, spring waters continue their slow, silent rise, threading between buttressed roots and turning the forest floor into a vast, glassy mirror that catches the first faint glimmer of starlight. As the heat of the day surrenders to the cool embrace of evening, the acoustic architecture of the ecosystem transforms completely. Diurnal calls fade into memory, replaced by the steady, hypnotic drone of nocturnal insects and the rhythmic pulsing of tree frogs hidden among the damp bromeliads. Far below the resting site, the dark water laps softly against the lower bark of ancient trees, creating a gentle, liquid percussion that resonates through the humid night air. High above the rising tide, cradled safely within the dry hollow of a grand kapok tree draped in heavy Spanish moss, the world slows to a peaceful crawl. Here, sheltered from the dampness of the flood, a female jaguar settles into her nightly sanctuary. Her powerful, muscular frame forms a secure, protective crescent around her tiny, fragile cub. In this elevated nursery, the ambient sounds of the wild are muffled by thick layers of foliage and hanging moss, reducing the vast wilderness to a safe, intimate cocoon. The sudden transition from day to night triggers a drop in ambient temperature, but the infant immediately presses closer, finding refuge against the steady, radiant warmth of its mother's flank. Surrounded by velvet darkness and the low, soothing cadence of maternal breathing, the forest drifts into a profound, restorative stillness. Within the sheltered curve of the hollow, the cool night air outside presses gently against the outer canopy, but inside this living fortress, a steady, restorative microclimate prevails. The small infant, whose own internal thermostat is still maturing, relies completely on the generous, radiant heat radiating from its mother's muscular frame. Every breath she takes draws the little cub closer into the luxurious, tawny wool of her winter coat, creating an unbroken channel of warmth that shields the newborn from the chill of the spring night. Lying flush against the solid expanse of her side, the cub experiences the deep, rhythmic percussion of her heartbeat, a slow, reassuring drumbeat that echoes the steady pulse of life itself. This constant physical contact does more than simply maintain the infant's body temperature. It activates specialized neural pathways associated with comfort, security, and stress reduction. Each gentle rise and fall of her chest acts as a soothing cradle, lulling the tiny predator into a state of profound physiological relaxation. In this intimate space of shared breath and starlit stillness, the boundaries between mother and offspring blur into a single, cohesive unit of survival. The heavy scent of damp earth and distant river water drifts softly past the entrance, mingling with the familiar, calming musk of the mother's fur. Wrapped safely in this living embrace, the infant yields entirely to the deep, healing currents of sleep, its small limbs twitching lightly in pleasant dreams while the dark forest hums its ancient, quiet lullaby. Beyond the protective threshold of the hollow, the nocturnal wetland awakens, transforming the dark air into a living tapestry of sound. A continuous, soothing symphony washes over the high branches, led by the steady, hypnotic drone of nocturnal insects vibrating in the warm, humid spring breeze. Woven into this shimmering bassline comes the rhythmic, pulsing chorus of distant tree frogs, their synchronized calls rising and falling like a gentle tide against the forest floor. Far below, the swollen river laps softly at the lower trunks, punctuated by the occasional, soft splash of aquatic life navigating the newly flooded shallows. For the resting infant, this complex acoustic environment is filtered through the damp, insulating foliage and the comforting barrier of the mother's protective body. These natural frequencies, ranging from the high-pitched trills of insects to the low-frequency thrum of the river, roll over the cub in rolling waves of ambient white noise. Because the young brain is designed to process and categorize novel sounds even during sleep, these harmless vibrations do not startle. Instead, the auditory cortex quietly catalogs the comforting auditory landscape, learning to anchor itself to the predictable rhythms of the ecosystem. The mother's slow, measured breathing matches the cadence of the forest outside, creating a seamless bridge between the wider world and the intimate safety of the den. Safe within this acoustic cocoon, the infant absorbs the rich sounds of the night, its tiny form rising and falling in effortless synchronization with the beating heart beside it, drifting deeper into the restorative stillness of the dark. Even in deep slumber, the infant's nervous system remains quietly industrious. The tiny body is a marvel of biological design, actively processing the acoustic tapestry of the neotropical night even while resting. A soft twitch ripples through the pale, velvety fur of the cub's left ear, rotating the delicate pinna toward a sudden shift in the canopy. This involuntary movement is part of a crucial neurological calibration. The auditory cortex is hard at work, mapping the complex, overlapping sound signatures of the forest and learning to distinguish ordinary background noise from unfamiliar vibrations. Long whiskers, sensitive to both air currents and subtle tactile feedback, brush lightly against the mother's warm fur with every breath. These sensory hairs act as microscopic antennas, gathering data about the immediate physical environment while the brain practices spatial awareness. In a young apex predator, this nocturnal exposure is essential training. Every insect drone, distant owl call, and rustling leaf is cataloged in the developing brain, laying down the neural pathways that will one day guide successful hunts under the cover of darkness. The steady, rhythmic thrum of the mother's heartbeat provides a reassuring baseline against which all other sounds are measured. As the infant drifts through cycles of light and heavy sleep, its nervous system fine-tunes its sensitivity, learning how to filter the chaotic symphony of the spring wetland into an orderly map of the nocturnal world. Protected by the dense canopy and enveloped in maternal warmth, the cub continues its effortless journey toward maturity, growing stronger and more aware with every quiet breath of the night. Beneath the thick velvet of the forest night, a deeper, more profound current anchors the resting cub. Against the infant's small, receptive chest, the mother's heartbeat offers a steady, subterranean metronome. Thump, 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 thump. This reliable pulse resonates through the warm muscle and dense fur, acting as a biological anchor in the vast, shadowed wilderness. The infant's tiny heart beats at a naturally faster tempo, a delicate flutter compared to the deep, resonant cadence of the adult. Yet, as the cub rests its chin directly against the mother's chest, something remarkable happens beneath the surface. The smaller rhythm begins to align itself with the larger, sinking breath for breath and pulse for pulse in a quiet choreography of physiological attunement. This matching of heartbeats does more than simply comfort. It facilitates vital thermoregulation and emotional security, signaling to the infant's developing brain that the surrounding world holds no immediate threat. In the quiet sanctuary of the canopy hollow, this shared rhythm emphasizes the timeless continuity of maternal care. It is an ancient cycle, repeated across generations of apex predators in the flooded lowlands. The mother's calm vitality flows effortlessly into her offspring, wrapping the small body in a cocoon of absolute safety. Here, at the very heart of their sprawling territory, time seems to stretch and slow. Surrounded by the gentle lapping of spring floodwaters and the steady rise and fall of maternal breath, the infant drifts deeper into restorative sleep, safely cradled within the living rhythm of the forest. Slowly, across the span of the resting hours, the sharp edge of the midnight dark softens. High above the still swollen river, the heavy moisture of the spring air begins to lift, carrying with it the fading echoes of the nocturnal chorus. The steady drone of insects thins, and the distant calls of tree frogs grow quiet, yielding to the profound stillness that precedes the dawn. Within the sheltered embrace of the moss-draped hollow, the infant jaguar remains utterly undisturbed by the gradual shift of the world outside. The tiny body, warmed through the long night by the steady thermal radiator of the mother's muscular flank, relaxes completely in deep, restorative slumber. This unbroken sleep is essential for the rapid neurological development taking place within the young brain, allowing the day's newly acquired auditory pathways to rest and consolidate. The millions of delicate neural connections, forged through hours of listening to the forest's varied frequencies, now knit together in the quiet sanctuary of dreams. Outside their elevated haven, the canopy begins to catch the very first, imperceptible hints of the advancing day. A pale, silvery light filters down through the dense Spanish moss, touching the sleeping forms with a gentle, warming glow. The spring air stirs with a soft, fresh breeze, rippling the leaves and carrying the clean scent of wet earth and blossoming vegetation from the flooded plains far below. The mother shifts slightly, a minimal adjustment of muscle and weight that maintains the unbroken circle of protection around her young. Her breathing remains deep and even, a comforting anchor as the forest pauses in quiet anticipation. Resting securely against her side, the cub stirs just enough to snuggle closer, entirely at peace within the cradle of the wild. Across the vast expanses of the South American Pantanal, a profound transformation unfolds as spring yields to the height of summer. The relentless tropical sun climbs higher into the pale afternoon sky, radiating a heavy, golden warmth that settles over the winding waterways. For months, the sprawling floodwaters reigned supreme, turning the lowland forests into a labyrinth of submerged roots and quiet channels. Now, a seasonal rhythm of evaporation and drainage takes hold. Day by day, the water level quietly recedes, drawing back from the edges of the gallery forests to reveal a newly exposed world of sun-baked mudflats and expanding grassy plains. This shifting landscape marks a crucial turning point in the ecosystem. As the shallows dry, rich alluvial soils are left behind, quickly hardening under the steady heat. The aquatic abundance of the flood season gives way to a sprawling terrestrial expanse, defined by tall stands of sun-bleached grass and scattered, resilient acacia trees. A steady, soft wind sweeps across the open savannas, carrying the warm scent of dry earth and rustling the drying leaves overhead. From the upper branches, the descending notes of birdsong drift lazily through the humid air, blending with the steady, rhythmic chorus of distant cicadas humming in the afternoon haze. In this warming environment, the physical boundaries of the wilderness expand. The receding water no longer restricts movement, inviting creatures of the dense forest edge to step out into the vast, open sunlight. It is a time of physiological adaptation, where every resident of the floodplain must adjust to the rising temperatures and the changing terrain of the dry period, resting beneath the fading glare of a long, golden afternoon. Leaving the cool, dappled shadows of the gallery forest behind, the mother jaguar and her growing cubs step outward into the bright expanse of the savanna. The transition is marked by a sudden shift in texture and temperature, as the humid shelter of the dense understory gives way to the open plains. Here, towering clumps of sun-bleached grass stretch upward, creating a sea of shimmering gold that ripples gently in the soft breeze. This tall vegetation provides an effective form of natural camouflage, blending the spotted coats of the felines with the shifting patterns of light and shadow cast by the low-angled sun. As they navigate this sun-drenched terrain, the young cub experiences a new realm of physical sensations. The ground beneath its paws is no longer the soft, damp leaf litter of the flooded margins, but a firm, sun-warmed earth covered in crisp vegetation. Every step requires a subtle adjustment in balance and muscular control, engaging developing limbs in the complex mechanics of terrestrial locomotion. The cub's growing bones and fibers adapt continuously to the firmer substrate, building the physical foundation necessary for future endurance. All around them, the late afternoon air vibrates with the steady, hypnotic hum of distant cicadas, while a light breeze rustles the dry blades of grass in a soothing, rhythmic cadence. The mother moves with deliberate, unhurried grace, her powerful shoulders rolling smoothly beneath her spotted hide as she guides her offspring deeper into the tall grass. The cub follows closely in her fading footprints, its bright eyes wide with curiosity, absorbing the sights and scents of the vast, open world unfolding before them. Amidst the towering stalks of golden grass, the young jaguar pauses, its attention suddenly captured by a drifting leaf tumbling lazily on the breeze. This ephemeral motion triggers an ancient, hardwired sequence of neural impulses, awakening the deep instincts of an apex predator. Dropping low to the sun-warmed earth, the cub flattens its body against the ground, testing the mechanics of the stealthy creep. Every muscle along its spine tightens and releases in a delicate balance of tension and relaxation, cultivating the precise neuromuscular coordination required for adult survival. With wide, focused eyes, the small feline aligns its shoulders and haunches, shifting its weight backward onto powerful hind legs. A stray blade of grass sways nearby, and the cub reacts instantly, launching forward in a clumsy, joyous bound. It lands with all four paws in a playful pounce upon a patch of empty soil, immediately shaking its head with spirited determination. These repeated, low-stakes interactions with the environment serve a vital biological purpose, stimulating bone density growth and enhancing proprioception, the internal awareness of body position in space. As the afternoon light softens, the cub turns its attention to a swaying stem, stalking forward with exaggerated, deliberate steps. Each movement refines the intricate timing between vision, balance, and muscular execution, transforming awkward youthful energy into fluid grace. Satisfied with the successful ambush of the imaginary prey, the young predator gives a soft, contented huff, settling down for a brief moment of quiet repose amidst the whispering vegetation. Beneath the surface of these seemingly carefree games, a profound biological transformation unfolds. Every bound, every awkward leap, and every low-slung crawl acts as a powerful catalyst for musculoskeletal development. As the young jaguar repeatedly accelerates, stops, and twists through the open grasslands, the physical stress applied to its growing skeleton stimulates osteogenesis, the cellular process that increases bone density. The impact of landing on sun-baked soil sends gentle shockwaves up through the limbs, signaling the bones to grow thicker and stronger to support the immense weight of an adult apex predator. Simultaneously, these dynamic movements forge dense networks of muscle fibers and refine proprioception, the nervous system's ability to sense body position and motion. The cerebellum, the brain region responsible for motor control and balance, processes millions of sensory inputs during a single playful pounce, calibrating the timing between the eyes, inner ear, and skeletal muscles. This intricate feedback loop transforms raw juvenile energy into precise neuromuscular coordination. Through this natural conditioning, the cub develops the explosive fast-twitch muscle fibers essential for subduing large prey along the drying riverbanks of the Pantanal. Play is not merely a pastime, it is the rigorous architectural drafting of a supreme hunter, carefully engineering the power and agility required for survival in a demanding, shifting world. leaving behind the masking gurgle of shallow floodwaters. The young jaguar now confronts a vastly different acoustic landscape. Without the forgiving cushion of liquid to muffle its footsteps, every movement across the sun-baked earth demands a deliberate adjustment in biomechanics. The receding waters have left behind a mosaic of hardened mudflats and powdery, cracked soil interspersed with crisp, fallen acacia branches. To move undetected across this brittle terrain, the cub must learn the art of terrestrial stealth. Felines possess specialized elastic pads beneath their paws, thick cushions of adipose tissue that absorb shock and conform to uneven surfaces. As the cub navigates the sun-bleached expanse, its nervous system fine-tunes the pressure applied to each digit. Instead of the splashing strides of earlier months, it adopts a measured, plantigrade to digitigrade transition, rolling its weight smoothly from heel to claw. When a dry twig snaps beneath a misplaced paw, the cub instinctively freezes, halting all momentum in a fraction of a second. This sudden cessation of movement relies on isometric muscle contraction, stabilizing the spine and joints without a single wasted tremor. The acoustics of the dry season are unforgiving. Rustling grass and crackling earth carry sound much farther across the open grassland. To compensate, the cub lowers its center of gravity, hugging its belly closer to the cooling dust. It learns to place its front paws precisely where the hind paws have just lifted. A synchronized gait known as direct registration that minimizes the sound of its passage. Every step over the sun-baked ridges trains the young predator to read the micro-topography of the earth, turning the hardened landscape from an obstacle into a silent path. The heavy heat of the late afternoon begins to soften, though the sun-baked earth still radiates a gentle warmth into the cooling air. Pausing at the edge of an open meadow, the growing cub sinks down into the welcome shade cast by a towering clump of sun-bleached grass. A soft wind brushes across the grassland, carrying the distant, rhythmic hum of cicadas and the cooling scent of damp earth from the nearby river. Panting softly to regulate its body temperature, the young feline lets its heavy eyelids droop, feeling every muscle in its growing limbs relax against the shaded soil. Just beyond the swaying grass, the gallery forest offers a denser canopy where the air is noticeably cooler. The mother stands nearby, her amber eyes scanning the shifting shadows before turning toward a narrow game trail that winds downward. With a gentle nudge, she guides her resting cub toward the permanent river pools that still hold deep, life-giving water through the dry season. Rising from the dust, the cub stretches its spine in a long, fluid motion, feeling the strength in its newly conditioned muscles. Together, the pair moves with unhurried grace down the sloping bank, leaving behind the blazing expanse of the open plains. As they slip quietly into the cool shelter of the riverside thickets, the sounds of the day fade into a peaceful evening hush, inviting a deep and restorative rest beneath the darkening leaves. The midday summer sun had baked the great Pantanal floodplain into a mosaic of cracked earth and hardened clay. Now, as the afternoon softened into twilight, the atmosphere shifted, breathing a sigh of cooling relief across the winding basin. The young jaguar picked his way carefully down the baked mud banks, his growing paws finding purchase on the dust-dusted slopes. Every surface still radiated the day's trapped warmth, a persistent reminder of the dry season's heavy grip. But ahead lay a different kind of air. Down in the low-lying basin, the river had retreated, leaving behind a slow-moving channel of water flanked by exposed silt and vibrant green streamside reeds that rustled gently in the emerging evening breeze. As the cub descended further, the ambient temperature dropped just a fraction, drawing him downward with an instinctive, sensory pull. Unlike many of his feline relatives who shun the liquid element, the jaguar's heavy-boned frame and muscular build are uniquely adapted to thrive in these humid, water-rich realms. His dense, rosette-patterned coat absorbed the shifting shadows of the fading orange light, blending seamlessly into the encroaching dusk. From the reeds, calling tree frogs began their rhythmic evening chorus, accompanied by the soft, steady buzzing of insects settling into their nocturnal routines. A distant bird chimed a final melodic note across the quiet expanse, dissolving into the gentle, ambient murmur of the lapping current below. The heat of the day was finally surrendering to the tranquility of the wetland night, and the edge of the river called out with the promise of cool, restorative waters. At the very margin of the receding channel, the juvenile paused, his amber eyes fixed on the shimmering mirror of the shallows. He settled his weight onto his haunches, breathing in the rich, earthy scent of damp silt mixed with the cool, refreshing vapor rising off the current. The gentle water ripples lapped softly against the exposed clay, sending tiny, rhythmic tremors toward his waiting feet. Driven by an innate, ancient curiosity, the young cat extended a single forepaw outward, hovering it just above the liquid surface before making deliberate contact. The soft mud squished slowly beneath his pads, yielding in a comforting, velvety embrace, while the water itself brushed lightly against his ankles. Unlike the dry, dust-cracked earth he had traversed all afternoon, this fluid environment offered an immediate, soothing drop in temperature, easing the residual heat trapped within his thick fur. This natural thermoregulation is vital for apex predators enduring the searing Pantanal summers, and his body instinctively welcomed the chill. He tilted his head, watching the way the current swirled around his toes, tickling the sensitive whiskers on the backs of his legs. Every ripple delivered a cascade of hidden information to his developing sensory system, carrying the vibrations of tiny aquatic creatures darting through the shallows. The lapping current whispered against his skin, inviting him further into the slow-moving backwater pools where his powerful, heavy-boned frame would soon find a completely new way to move, resting easily at the boundary of land and water as the fading light painted the sky in shades of amber and lavender. Encouraged by the cool relief washing over his tired paws, the young jaguar took a full, deliberate step forward, sliding his sturdy body beneath the surface of the shallow backwater pool. There was no hesitation now, only a quiet surrender to the welcoming depths. His dense, tawny fur absorbed the water instantly, the heavy strands weighing slightly against his skin as his powerful shoulders effortlessly supported his growing frame. This innate comfort in an aquatic medium stems from the jaguar's unique evolutionary adaptations. Unlike many of his feline relatives who view deep water with caution, this apex predator possesses a dense coat and exceptionally muscular, heavy-boned build that provides natural buoyancy. As the water level rose gently along his flanks, lifting his weight from the damp silt, his body found a graceful equilibrium between floating and wading. Gentle water ripples fanned outward from his chest, lapping softly against his shoulders. The slow-moving current caressed his ribs, carrying away the lingering heat of the day in a profound act of thermoregulation. He lowered his belly further into the silty basin, feeling the profound support of the water beneath him. Every muscle in his broad frame relaxed, cradled by the fluid buoyancy as he drifted deeper into the calm pool. Drifting streamside reeds brushed lightly against his ears, while calling tree frogs began their evening chorus in the gathering shadows. Buoyed by the water and enveloped in the soothing embrace of the fading twilight, the young cat rested suspended in the gentle current, completely at home in the quiet heart of the wetland. With a soft, fluid motion, the cub began to paddle in slow, rhythmic circles within the protected pool. His powerful forelimbs swept through the water with effortless grace, demonstrating the exceptional anatomical adaptations that distinguish the jaguar from its big cat relatives. Unlike lions or leopards, which often display a distinct reluctance toward deep water, This young predator moved with an ancestral confidence encoded deep within his genes. His broad, heavily muscled shoulders acted as primary paddles, propelling him forward with steady, measured strokes. Beneath the surface, his thick bones, denser than those of similarly sized felines, provided a solid framework that balanced his natural buoyancy. This unique skeletal density allowed him to ride neither too high nor too low in the water, but rather strike a perfect equilibrium that made swimming an efficient, energy-saving endeavor. As he circled the calm basin, his large paws flexed naturally with each stroke, maximizing surface area to push against the gentle current. The lapping current massaged his flanks, while soft insects buzzed lazily in the warm air above. Every movement of his limbs was a quiet masterclass in aquatic locomotion, requiring minimal effort from a physique built for power and endurance. He turned in a lazy arc, leaving a trail of gentle water ripples that shimmered under the bruised orange light of the descending sun. The rhythmic motion lulled him into a tranquil focus, his mind settling into the peaceful cadence of the water. Those very same ripples soon caught the young cat's keen attention, transforming the serene swim into a playful exploration of fluid dynamics. A cluster of dry acacia leaves and a slender, sun-bleached twig drifted across the pool's surface, turning the quiet water into a canvas for developmental practice. Crouching low until his chin nearly skimmed the water's surface, the juvenile paused to watch the floating debris bob gently with the lapping current. This dynamic environment challenged his spatial awareness and hand-eye coordination in ways dry land never could. As a drifting leaf spun past, he extended a broad forepaw and executed a tentative, half-submerged swipe. Water droplets sprayed in a tiny, glittering arc under the soft, fading evening glow. The light-hearted game engaged his rapidly maturing nervous system, fine-tuning the precise motor skills required for hunting along flooded riverbanks. He practiced arresting his momentum mid-stroke, learning how water resistance differed vastly from air resistance. Another gentle lunge sent ripples radiating outward toward the rustling streamside reeds, accompanied by the low, resonant calling of tree frogs tuning up for the night. With each playful swat and splash, the young predator grew more attuned to the aquatic world around him. He batted lazily at a passing bubble, his amber eyes following its erratic path until it dissolved against his whiskers. These unhurried moments of aquatic play were far more than simple amusement. They were an instinctive rehearsal for survival, perfectly balanced by the soothing, rhythmic pulse of the slow-moving river. Satisfied with his aquatic experiments, the young jaguar waded slowly back toward the sloping bank. He planted his heavy paws onto the soft mud and hoisted his frame out of the receding river. Once ashore, he gave his entire body a vigorous shake. Water droplets scattered in a wide circle, glistening like tiny diamonds against the darkening soil as his dense, specialized fur began to trap a layer of air for insulation against the dropping night temperature. The damp earth beneath him still held the lingering warmth of the long summer day, radiating a comforting heat through his belly. Settling into a low, comfortable contour in the mud, the juvenile tucked his paws beneath his chest and let out a long, heavy sigh. His heart rate slowed in rhythm with the gentle lapping current nearby, transitioning smoothly from the energetic play of twilight into the deep repose of evening. Around him, the wetland symphony swelled as soft insects buzzed among the grasses and distant birdsong faded into the quiet shadows. The calling tree frogs grew louder, their steady chorus weaving a familiar lullaby through the rustling streamside reeds. With his amber eyes growing heavy under the purple canopy of dusk, the young predator rested his chin gently upon his outstretched paws. Safe within the embrace of the riverbank, surrounded by the cool evening air and the soothing sounds of the receding waters, he drifted toward sleep, fully at home in the heart of the wild Pantanal. The heavy summer heat of the Pantanal lingers even as the sun begins its slow descent toward the horizon, casting long, bruised violet shadows across the damp earth. Out on the open riverbanks, the air is still warm, but beneath the dense canopy of the forest edge, a cooling breath stirs the stillness. A mature female jaguar emerges from the dappled light, moving with a fluid, liquid grace that seems to defy her considerable mass. Close behind her treads her growing cub, a young feline whose limbs are losing their awkward proportions, slowly acquiring the dense, muscular framework characteristic of Panthera onca. Together, they slip away from the waterways and into the secluded labyrinth of a dense bamboo thicket. Here, towering stalks of green bamboo create a natural cathedral, their hollowed joints groaning softly in the gentle wind. The atmosphere shifts, growing dim and hushed. The air is rich and heavy with the scent of damp soil, crushed leaves, and the subtle, musky trace of passing peccaries. Every footstep is swallowed by a deep, spongy carpet of decomposing organic matter. The mother pauses, turning her heavy head to check on her offspring. Her amber eyes reflect the dimming light, sweeping the understory with acute predatory awareness. The cub halts instantly, matching her posture, its tiny ears swiveling to catch the rising chorus of evening birdsong and the steady, low-pitched hum of twilight insects. A nearby stream whispers over smooth stones, adding a liquid lullaby to the woodland symphony. As the shadows deepen, wrapping the thicket in a blanket of protective gloom, the mother resumes her silent march deeper into the greenery, leading her eager student into the quiet heart of the forest. Here in the deepening gloom, the mother stops to give a quiet masterclass in biomechanics. To the human eye, a jaguar is simply a magnificent beast. To the forest, she is a miracle of low-slung architecture. She demonstrates the ancient art of the stalk, pressing her heavy, muscular frame down until her cream-colored belly hovers just millimeters above the damp earth. Her anatomy is perfectly engineered for this stealthy approach. Unlike the tall, lanky frame of a cheetah designed for explosive open-country sprints, the jaguar possesses short, immensely powerful limbs and exceptionally broad shoulder blades that glide smoothly beneath her skin without jutting upward. This architecture keeps her center of gravity exceptionally low, anchoring her to the ground with supreme stability. As she moves forward, every muscle works in silent harmony. Her spine undulates with effortless flexibility, absorbing the shock of each step. The mottled pattern of her rosetted coat, complex, dark rosettes with spots inside, breaks up her solid outline, perfectly mimicking the fractured shadows cast by the bamboo stalks and tangled vines. The cub watches with unblinking amber eyes, absorbing every detail. It notes how the mother extends a massive, velvet-padded forepaw, feeling for obstructions beneath the leaf litter before shifting her full weight. Retractable claws remain safely sheathed, preventing any accidental clicking against hidden twigs. Slowly, the juvenile attempts to mirror the posture. It dips its chest toward the mossy soil, trying to align its spine and shorten its stride. Every movement is deliberate, a physical dialogue between mother and child, written in the quiet language of muscle, bone, and shadow. The young cat settles lower into the damp, decaying leaf litter, attempting to fold its growing limbs into the same impossibly low profile. Instinct guides the juvenile, whispering of balance and concealment, but growing joints and clumsy paws require conscious effort to command. With extreme concentration, the cub extends a small, velvety forepaw forward. It places the soft leather of the pad down upon the earth, testing the stability of the forest floor before committing any weight. Yet, a sudden, sharp snap echoes beneath its hind foot, a dry twig, hidden beneath a blanket of decomposing ferns, breaks the quiet evening air. The mother pauses instantly, her head turning just enough to offer a gentle, guiding look. There is no scolding, only quiet patience in the amber depths of her eyes. The cub freezes, adjusting its posture. It learns the vital lesson of weight distribution, shifting its center of gravity slightly forward and arching its spine to relieve pressure on the rear paws. This delicate adjustment relies on the exceptional flexibility of the feline vertebral column, which allows the young jaguar to hover closer to the soil and better navigate the complex floor of the ecosystem. Trying once more, the juvenile lifts its paw, rotates the wrist inward, and steps into the exact footprint left by the mother. This precise placement ensures the ground has already been tested for hazards. Slowly, silently, the cub glides across the patch of dry debris without a single rustle, melting seamlessly into the gathering twilight. The lesson shifts upward, away from the cluttered earth and toward a massive, centuries-old fallen mahogany trunk bridging a shallow, winding drainage ditch. Soft velvet moss blankets the decaying bark, creating a slick and challenging highway suspended above the muddy bank. The mother approaches the obstacle with effortless, fluid grace. Her powerful shoulder blades roll beneath her spotted coat as she steps onto the timber, her body elongating into a straight, perfectly balanced line that defies the narrow footing. The cub watches from the base of the log, blinking sleepily in the amber twilight before leaping up to join her. As the juvenile takes its first tentative steps, the instability of the elevated wood becomes immediately apparent. The small cat's paws wobble slightly on the damp moss, threatening to slide. To compensate, the young jaguar stretches its tail straight out behind it, using the heavy appendage as a dynamic counterweight. Every slight sway of the hips is met with a precise twitch of the tail, engaging the vestibular system within the inner ear to constantly recalibrate its sense of equilibrium. This natural balancing act is vital for the development of the cerebellum, the region of the brain responsible for fine-tuning muscular coordination and spatial awareness. Navigating elevated pathways requires exceptional proprioception, the body's ability to sense its position in space, allowing the growing predator to adjust its stride without looking down at its feet. Step by careful step, the cub finds a steady rhythm. The muscles along its spine tighten and relax in a continuous wave of micro-adjustments, building the core strength necessary for future life in the dense forests and flooded plains of the Pantanal. By the time the pair reaches the far side of the log, the juvenile's movements have grown markedly smoother, embodying the quiet confidence of an apex predator maturing under the gentle canopy of the evening. Emerging from the elevated timber, the mother and cub descend into a shaded clearing where the tangled vines of the forest edge pull back to reveal a soft bed of damp soil. Here, the heavy tension of the stalk dissolves into an instant of buoyant, youthful energy. The young jaguar's gaze locks onto a tantalizing target, the long, spotted tip of its mother's tail, swaying lazily back and forth like a pendulum against the darkening foliage. Without warning, the cub abandons its cautious composure, launching forward in a sudden, exuberant pounce. It crashes into the resting adult with front paws outstretched, batting playfully at the thick fur. The mother responds with infinite, gentle patience. Rather than reprimanding the juvenile, she rolls slightly onto her side, allowing the cub to practice the vital mechanics of a tackle. This lighthearted wrestling match is far more than a game. Beneath the bursts of joyful tumbling lies a crucial biological purpose. Through these repeated bouts of lunging and grappling, the growing predator is rapidly developing its fast-twitch muscle fibers, the specialized cellular tissue responsible for the explosive acceleration needed to secure future prey. Every twist, swat, and tumble conditions the cardiovascular system and builds raw physical power in the shoulders and jaws. The mother offers just enough resistance to keep the challenge alive, teaching the juvenile how to leverage its weight and manage its growing strength. As the playful tussle slowly winds down into a series of contented, heavy-lidded nudges, the cooling evening breeze sweeps gently through the clearing, carrying the quiet, steady rhythm of the resting wilderness. As the last golden rays of the summer sun slip below the horizon, the temperature cools, and the flooded forest takes on a peaceful nocturnal serenity. The mother and cub pause their practice, resting side by side on a thick bed of cool moss beneath the wide, sheltering roots of a towering canopy tree. The heavy, humid air of the Pantanal yields to a refreshing evening breeze that carries the damp, earthy scent of river mud and blooming night cestrum. In this quiet sanctuary, the ambient sounds shift. The daytime birdsong fades, replaced by the rhythmic hum of distant insects and the soft, soothing creaks of bamboo stalks swaying in the twilight. The young jaguar rests its chin heavily upon its mother's warm flank, feeling the steady, powerful beat of her heart. Its small chest rises and falls in a synchronized, calming tempo. After hours of intense focus, muscle coordination, and playful bursts of energy, the juvenile's breathing slows, the daze lessens, the silent footfalls, the art of camouflage, and the patient mechanics of the stalk settle deep into its developing nervous system, merging instinct with experience. As the shadows deepen into the velvet blackness of night, the forest breathes around them. The young predator rests its eyes, perfectly safe and deeply comforted within the protective rhythms of its woodland home, fully prepared for the quiet mysteries of the midnight prowl that awaits. The heavy, humid air of the Pantanal summer finally surrenders to the quiet grace of evening. As the blistering sun dips below the horizon, a velvet darkness blankets the vast floodplain, carrying with it a much-needed coolness. Out from the dense shadows of a tangled resting thicket, a young jaguar stirs. With a slow, deliberate yawn, the growing cub stretches its lengthening limbs, its spotted coat brushing softly against the dew-soaked foliage. Nightfall triggers an extraordinary biological transformation. Inside the young predator's golden eyes, specialized muscles contract to widen the pupils, flooding the retina with available light. A reflective layer behind the retina, the tapetum lucidum, captures every fragment of moonlight and amplifies it, granting the feline exceptional night vision. The mother steps silently from the brush, her muscular silhouette dissolving seamlessly into the gloom. Without a sound, she leads the way toward the edge of the sleeping marsh. The ambient soundscape shifts gently into focus. A steady chorus of nocturnal insects hums a low, hypnotic lullaby, punctuated by the soft rustling of leaves stirred by a gentle, cooling breeze. From somewhere deep within the distant canopy, a tropical owl calls out in a low, resonant hoot, harmonizing with the distant, steady flow of a sluggish stream. Sensing her cub close behind, the experienced female pauses at the threshold of the trees. The young cat matches her posture, lowering its center of gravity and aligning its breathing with the rhythm of the night. Together, they step forward, leaving the safety of the thicket to embrace the shimmering, silver-lit wilderness. Ahead lies a labyrinth of fallen timber and tangled vines bridging a dark, sluggish river channel. The mother leaps gracefully onto a massive, moss-covered log, her broad paws distributing her weight evenly across the slick bark. The cub hesitates for a single heartbeat, its whiskers twitching as they capture subtle shifts in the air currents, before jumping up to follow. Navigating this narrow highway demands absolute physical concentration and precise biomechanics. The young predator lowers its body, tucking its elbows inward and aligning its spine for maximum balance. In the feline inner ear, the vestibular system continuously calculates tilt and momentum, keeping the heavy-headed cat steady over the abyss of the black water below. Every single step is a deliberate exercise in acoustic camouflage. Jaguars possess specialized soft pads on their paws, richly cushioned with adipose tissue that absorbs the impact of landing. Yet, summer has baked the underbrush, leaving a carpet of brittle twigs and dry leaves. The cub watches the mother's leading forelimb, carefully placing its own front paw into the exact indentation left moments before. By utilizing direct registering, where the hind paw steps precisely into the track of the front paw, the young cat reduces its auditory footprint by half. When a brittle vine blocks the path, the cub does not crush it. Instead, it slowly shifts its weight, lifting the limb high in a fluid arc and setting the foot down on bare, damp soil. Muscles flex and relax in effortless unison, driven by an innate nervous system finely tuned for stealth. They glide across the treacherous bridge like flowing liquid, leaving no sound behind in the quiet night. Beyond the fallen fig tree, the obstacle course of the swamp deepens, requiring absolute mastery of feline architecture. The river channel widens here, its surface a mirror of black silk reflecting the silver stars overhead. Spanning the sluggish current is a massive, decaying trunk of a wild rubber tree, draped in thick curtains of weeping epiphytes and velvet soft moss. The mother glides across the damp wood effortlessly, her tail swaying in a slow, rhythmic arc to counterbalance each step. The young jaguar follows, its emerald tapetum eyes catching the faint moonlight reflecting off the sluggish water below. Crossing this suspended bridge is a masterclass in proprioception, the body's unconscious awareness of movement and spatial orientation. Inside the cub's developing brain, the cerebellum rapidly processes signals from sensory receptors in the joints and muscles, adjusting posture on the slick, rotting bark with microscopic precision. The air is thick with the rich scent of damp earth and blooming night cestrum. Beneath them, the dark water eddies gently around submerged roots, where invisible fish ripple the surface. The cub pauses midway across the span, the soft pads of its paws sinking slightly into the spongy, water-retentive moss. It lowers its chest against the cooling timber, feeling the steady thrum of the forest through its bones. There is no rush in the midnight hours, only the slow, measured progression through a shadowed world. With a final, fluid movement, the young cat lifts its paws, descending gracefully from the timber highway onto the firm, dark soil of the opposing bank. Upon the solid ground of the bank, the mother halts beside the furrowed trunk of a towering strangler fig. Here, the invisible geography of the Pantanal transforms into a complex olfactory map. Solitary apex predators communicate across vast distances without ever meeting face to face, relying on the ancient, enduring language of chemistry. The mother lifts her head, her nostrils flaring to catch the subtle currents of the humid night air. She steps forward, inspecting a vertical scoring left deep in the rough bark, a visual billboard accompanied by residual chemical sprays. These territorial markings contain vital biological data: identity, gender, reproductive state, and dominant status. Curiosity overmastering caution, the growing cub steps close, pressing its pink nose against the scarred wood. A pungent, musky aroma floods its sensory receptors, triggering specialized vomeronasal organs located in the roof of its mouth. By flamening, slightly parting its lips to draw scent molecules toward this Jacobson's organ, the young cat processes the complex signature of a neighboring dominant male. It is a sobering lesson in social hierarchy, teaching the novice that the shadows of the forest are shared with formidable rivals. The mother lingers for a quiet moment, overlaying the foreign trace with her own potent secretions, quietly reinforcing her claim to the river corridor. The cub watches her every movement, imprinting the ritual into its growing mind. Satisfied, the female turns away from the marked tree, her pace resuming with steady, unhurried grace as they continue deeper into the moonlit expanse. Beyond the boundaries of the scent post, the dense gallery forest opens onto a broad, moonlight-drenched mud bank. A gentle wind drifts in from the east, carrying the heavy, earthy scent of river water and sun-warmed silt. The mother melts into the shadows of a low-hanging willow, her spotted coat dissolving seamlessly into the mottled patterns of silver leaves and dark earth. The growing cub follows her lead, lowering its belly close to the cool mud, practicing the art of silent, fluid concealment. Ahead of them, the shimmering shallows harbor resting giants. A sprawling family of capybaras, the world's largest rodents, huddles together in the reed-fringed water, their rounded muzzles occasionally twitching as they doze. Just a few yards away, the pale, armored ridges of large yak-hair caimans break the surface like floating logs, cold-blooded bodies soaking up the lingering warmth of the day. The mother pauses, turning her head slightly to test the invisible air currents. She demonstrates how to evaluate wind direction, ensuring their scent remains masked from the sensitive noses below. The cub watches, lifting its chin to feel the microscopic pressure of the breeze against its whiskers. Through patient observation, the young predator learns to calculate ambush angles, measuring the distance to the water's edge and noting the uneven footing of the muddy bank. For a long, quiet interval, the two jaguars simply watch the slumbering ecosystem. The rhythmic, heavy breathing of the capybaras blends with the low hum of nocturnal insects and the distant, hollow hoot of an owl. There is no rush to strike, the night is vast, and the lesson is one of stillness and timing. High above the winding river channels, the brilliant constellations of the southern sky begin to pale, melting into a soft wash of indigo and pearl. A gentle breeze stirs the canopy leaves overhead, carrying the first cool breath of approaching dawn. The nocturnal insects soften their steady hum, yielding to the quiet stillness that always precedes the rising sun. Sensing the shift in the nocturnal rhythm, the mother jaguar turns her amber eyes away from the shimmering water's edge. She rises with effortless grace, her powerful muscles shifting beneath her spotted hide, and leads the way inland toward the dense, shadowed heart of the gallery forest. The young cub follows closely, its limbs pleasantly tired from hours of silent navigation and patient observation. They wind their way through a labyrinth of buttressed tree trunks and hanging vines, searching for a secure place of refuge for the coming day. Jaguars are solitary by nature, yet this enduring bond provides the growing subadult with vital lessons in survival, territory, and timing. They soon discover a secluded hollow beneath the tangled roots of a massive strangler fig, a natural fortress screened by thick ferns and deep shadows. The mother settles onto the cool earth first, curling her heavy frame into a protective crescent. The cub squeezes in beside her, resting its chin on its mother's warm flank. Outside their leafy sanctuary, the forest awakens to the pink and gold of early morning light. Safe within their hidden alcove, the young predator closes its heavy eyelids, drifting into a deep, restorative sleep as the humid Pantanal day begins. The indigo of the Pantanal dawn yields slowly to a pale, buttery amber as the tropical sun crests the distant horizon. With this shift in light comes a swift, almost palpable climb in temperature. The humid air thickens, carrying the rich, earthy scent of damp soil and awakening vegetation. For the young jaguar, this invisible wall of rising heat signals an ancient biological imperative. As an apex predator in a seasonally flooded wetland, the growing feline possesses a thick, spotted coat designed for camouflage, but one that quickly traps thermal energy. As ambient temperatures begin to surpass its comfortable thermo-neutral zone, physiological mechanisms activate. The young cat's metabolism, which surged through hours of nocturnal exploration and hunting, begins to dial downward. This metabolic downregulation is a vital survival strategy, allowing the large feline to actively curb internal heat production, just as the external environment grows hostile. Pausing near the edge of an open glade where the sunbeams strike with sudden, stinging intensity, the jaguar shakes its heavy head. Its dark eyes, accustomed to the velvety shadows of the nocturnal hours, narrow against the glare. Every instinct urges it away from the baking expanse and deep into the sanctuary of the understory. The radiant heat radiating off the ground begins to shimmer in the distance, distorting the horizon into wavy lines of gold. Feeling the warm breath of morning brush across its damp whiskers, the young predator turns its broad shoulders toward the interior of the forest, seeking the cool, unbroken refuge of the deep green thicket. Stepping beneath the emerald canopy, the young cat enters a distinct microclimate where the ambient temperature drops by several degrees. Sunlight filters down only in scattered, broken flecks, painting the forest floor in soft mosaics of gold and shadow. Here, the air hangs heavy with the sweet, damp fragrance of towering heliconia flowers and crushed moss. The juvenile moves with slow, deliberate grace, parting a dense curtain of broad-leaved ferns that brush cool, moisture-laden fronds against its warm flanks. This thick vegetation acts as a natural thermal buffer, shielding the predator from the relentless solar radiation pressing down on the open floodplains. Every step is measured as the jaguar navigates the tangled undergrowth, seeking a sanctuary designed by nature's own architecture. It is searching for a specific habitat feature, a shallow depression in the alluvial earth where shade has pooled since the previous evening. Earth has a higher thermal capacity than air, remaining cool long after the dawn breaks. Within a quiet hollow beneath the sprawling roots of a strangler fig, the cat finds its haven. It eases its weight downward, pressing its chest directly into the damp, shadowed soil. This conduction of heat away from the core body allows the feline to shed excess thermal energy efficiently, bypassing the need for heavy panting. Tucked securely within the verdant enclave, completely concealed from the outside world, the young jaguar exhales a long, soft breath. The cool earth cradles its frame, offering a profound, restful embrace that stills the muscles and slows the rhythm of the resting day ahead. With a gentle sigh, the young cat shifts its weight, making subtle, rolling adjustments against the damp, welcoming soil. It presses its muscular shoulders and hips lower into the soft earth, carving a personal hollow that perfectly contours to its growing frame. By maximizing surface area contact with the cooler ground, the animal initiates a process of direct thermal conduction. Heat radiates outward from its core, passing harmlessly away from thick fur and into the dense, refreshing minerals of the forest floor below. This instinctive behavior acts as a biological radiator, efficiently lowering body temperature without expending precious water through panting. Slowly, the tension drains from powerful limbs. The heavy paws stretch outward, releasing the coiled energy that propelled the night's long wanderings. Every vertebra in the spine settles into a long, loose line, supported completely by the unmoving earth. A quiet, steady rhythm takes over the feline's breathing, matching the slow, pulsing heartbeat of the forest itself. Muscles that moments ago rippled with predatory precision now grow heavy and slack, enveloped by the steady, ambient coolness radiating from the shadows. Safe within the verdant embrace of the thicket, the young predator surrenders entirely to the restorative peace of the morning. Even as sleep deepens its hold, the young cat remains tethered to the world outside its eyelids. In the wild, true vulnerability is a luxury large felines rarely afford, and survival relies upon a uniquely guarded state of rest. While the central nervous system slows and metabolic rates drop, the sensory apparatus stays quietly alive. Atop the feline's skull, amber-tipped ears pivot independently like twin radar dishes, catching the distant, melodic trill of a canopy bird and the faint rustle of a foraging armadillo in the underbrush. Long, sensitive whiskers trace the microscopic shifts in thermal air currents, detecting the slightest change in wind direction or humidity that might signal a passing storm or the approach of another apex predator. This is vigilant slumber, a specialized form of polyphasic rest where the brain drifts through restorative cycles of slow-wave sleep while neural sentinels remain perpetually on duty. A sudden snap of a dry twig or an unfamiliar shadow filtering through the fern fronds would instantly summon a surge of adrenaline, bridging the gap between deep relaxation and explosive physical action in a fraction of a second. Yet, for now, the forest remains tranquil. The sensory inputs bring no alarm, only a soothing reassurance of the safety found within the green sanctuary. Eyelids flutter slightly over bright, reflective eyes, then settle back into a heavy, peaceful droop. The steady inhale and exhale of soft breathing continues in unhurried harmony with the whispering breeze, honoring the ancient, patient rhythm of the resting wild. Above the shaded depression, the upper story of the forest awakens into a vibrant auditory tapestry. A chorus of morning birdsong filters down through the overarching branches, washing over the sleeping cub in gentle, overlapping waves of melody. High in the sunlit greenery, yellow chevron tanagers and masked trogons exchange soft, liquid calls, their voices fragmenting into soothing ripples of sound that lose their sharp edges long before they reach the damp earth below. Interwoven with the avian chorus is the low, hypnotic hum of industrious insects navigating the humid air currents of the rising day. The steady drone acts as a natural white noise, vibrating softly against broad-leaved ferns and heliconia petals. A mild morning breeze stirs the upper foliage, creating a gentle rustling of leaves that sounds remarkably like the soft sigh of falling water. This rustling cascades through the vertical layers of the habitat, whispering secrets from the canopy down to the forest floor. Every ambient layer contributes to an acoustic sanctuary that envelops the resting animal in absolute peace. The trickling of a distant, hidden stream blends with the rhythmic whispering of the breeze, anchoring the young cat in an ecosystem rich with life yet profoundly calm. These layered sounds act as a natural lullaby, masking minor disturbances and reinforcing the sense of total security within the verdant enclave. Submerged in this rich soundscape, the feline's soft breathing matches the unhurried cadence of the waking wild, drifting deeper into the restorative embrace of the morning shadows. Hours pass in undisturbed tranquility within the verdant embrace of the thicket. Deep, restorative sleep works its quiet alchemy on the young jaguar, allowing its growing body to repair tissues, consolidate memory, and replenish the vital energy reserves required for life in the expansive Pantanal. During this profound state of resting behavior, the feline's metabolic rate slows significantly, an evolutionary adaptation that helps the growing cub conserve precious resources and maintain a stable internal temperature against the baking summer heat outside. As the sun climbs higher, casting long, peaceful diagonals of light across the damp earth, the heavy slumber slowly softens. Muscles that had been completely slack begin to twitch gently, responding to faint, instinctual dreams of nighttime prowls. The rhythmic pattern of soft breathing deepens slightly, signaling the gradual return of waking awareness without disrupting the profound calm of the refuge. Without fully opening its eyes, the young cat stretches out its front paws, extending curved claws into the yielding soil before drawing them back in a gesture of pure physical comfort. Its ears flick backward and forward, effortlessly tuning in to the familiar, comforting symphony of rustling ferns and distant, buzzing insects that mark the progression of the late morning. The heat of the day presses gently against the outer perimeter of the leafy canopy, but within this micro-habitat, the air remains cool and forgiving. Rejuvenated by hours of uninterrupted rest, the feline settles back down into the shaded depression for just a little longer, basking in the absolute safety of its hidden sanctuary, completely at peace in the heart of the wild. A subtle breath from the south drifts across the expansive Pantanal floodplain, carrying the first true coolness of the changing season. This gentle autumn wind whispers through the towering deciduous trees, gently waking the forest from the heavy, humid slumber of the wet months. High above, the sprawling canopy undergoes a quiet, magnificent transformation. Leaves that once held the deep, vibrant green of summer now slowly shift their chemistry, turning into breathtaking shades of rich gold, copper, and warm amber. As the breeze deepens, a quiet shower of crisp foliage begins to drift downward, painting the forest floor in a mosaic of rustling colors. Each falling leaf marks a crucial seasonal adaptation for the ecosystem, as the trees conserve moisture and energy during the drier, cooler months ahead. The ambient temperature softens, settling into a peaceful, inviting rhythm that invites the forest to exhale. Through the golden haze of the late afternoon, the air feels noticeably lighter, carrying the fresh, clean scent of dry earth and sun-warmed bark. Distant songbirds drift on the currents, their calls fading into the gentle susurration of leaves sweeping across the ground. A nearby stream babbles softly over smooth stones, adding a steady, grounding pulse to the tranquil landscape. Insects hum in slow, drowsy cadence among the branches, lingering in the last warm pockets of sunlight before dusk. Here, beneath the shifting amber-hued leaves, the world slows its pace entirely, resting in the quiet, restorative beauty of the turning year. Amidst this golden transformation, a magnificent figure steps softly onto the rustling carpet of fallen leaves. No longer a spotted cub dependent on maternal guidance, the young jaguar has blossomed into a robust subadult, nearly matching its mother in sheer physical scale. Every movement reveals the impressive results of physiological maturation. Bone density has increased significantly, providing a sturdy, heavy frame designed to absorb the immense impact of tackling large prey. The animal's musculature tells a story of relentless growth. Thick shoulders roll smoothly beneath a dense, powerful coat, and the forelimbs are remarkably broad, housing the immense strength required for the signature crushing bite of the species. Retractable claws, thick and razor-sharp, flex instinctively against the soft earth, honed through months of climbing and territorial marking. This newly developed anatomy is finely tuned for the demands of a solitary apex predator. The subadult's coat, a stunning tapestry of black rosettes framing rich golden fur, blends seamlessly into the dappled amber light filtering through the thinning canopy. Every physical proportion has shifted toward adulthood. The head is broader, the jawline heavier, and the chest barrel-shaped to support large lung capacity during extended exertion. As the big cat pauses to test the crisp air, long tactile whiskers twitch, registering the subtlest shifts in temperature and atmospheric pressure. In this quiet, amber-lit sanctuary, the subadult rests its heavy frame against a mossy log. The cooling breeze sweeps through the dense fur, carrying the faint, earthy scent of the floodplain. Here, in the quiet grace of physical maturity, the young jaguar rests, embodying the raw, untamed power of the changing forest. The journey through the deciduous sector resumes as the afternoon shadows lengthen across the floodplain. Mother and offspring move through the amber understory, yet the dynamic between them has subtly transformed. No longer stepping in identical footprints, the subadult chooses a parallel game trail just 20 paces to the left, navigating the dry terrain with a newly minted, independent grace. This spatial distancing is a natural prelude to dispersal, a gradual loosening of familial ties driven by instinct and shifting hormone levels. As they walk in unison beneath the golden canopy, their movements mirror an unspoken understanding. The mother maintains her steady pace, an anchor of experience, while the subadult exhibits a profound self-reliance, regularly pausing to sniff overlapping scent marks left by neighboring territorial males. Though they travel side by side, their worlds are slowly diverging. The young predator's sensitive paw pads, dense with specialized mechanoreceptors known as Pacinian corpuscles, detect the subtle vibrations of the mother's heavy tread through the soil, offering a reassuring, low-frequency hum of connection without physical crowding. Whenever the brush thickens, a quick flick of the subadult's rounded ears or a sideways glance confirms the mother's steady silhouette through the thinning leaves. This parallel navigation allows the growing big cat to test its own decision-making processes. It chooses where to step over fallen branches, how to skirt a patch of thorny bromeliads, and when to pause and survey the darkening woods. The crisp autumn wind carries their blended scents away into the deepening evening, marking a fleeting, peaceful interlude where two apex predators share the same path, yet walk entirely separate lives. A sudden shift in the breeze brings a complex tapestry of airborne signals drifting down from the upper watershed, halting the subadult in its tracks. The young cat freezes beside the textured, peeling bark of a towering strangler fig. Rising slightly onto its hind legs, it presses its muzzle against a deep groove left by a resident adult male just days prior. To decode this chemical message, the subadult performs the flamen response. It lifts its head, wrinkling its nose and drawing its upper lips back in a quiet, concentrated grimace. This specialized facial expression opens the nasopalatine canals behind the upper incisors, channeling airborne pheromones and glandular secretions directly into the vomeronasal organ, or Jacobson's organ, located in the roof of the mouth. Through this ancient sensory conduit, the adolescent brain reads an invisible map of the floodplain. The scent profile reveals precise details: the age, sex, physiological condition, and exact hormonal status of the powerful neighbor whose territory overlaps this sector. It is a silent communication written in chemical signatures, establishing boundaries without the need for a physical confrontation. The subadult lingers in this half-open-mouthed posture for several long, quiet breaths, absorbing the weight of the neighborhood hierarchy. As it finally closes its mouth and lowers back to all fours, the amber leaves swirl gently around its paws. The message has been clearly received, marking another quiet lesson in the intricate social rules of the mature forest. As the last slanting rays of sunlight filter through the canopy, the golden hues of the amber forest deepen into rich shades of bronze and burnt sienna. The crisp autumn wind softens, replaced by a gentle stillness that settles over the floodplain. With the drop in temperature, the thick, humid air of the wet season becomes a distant memory, replaced by a cool, refreshing clarity that makes every inhalation feel crisp and deep. Across the forest floor, long shadows stretch like velvet fingers between the buttressed roots of ancient trees. The subadult cat exhales slowly, a tiny plume of warm breath mingling with the chill of the twilight air. Settling into a hollow beneath a canopy of rustling, fallen leaves, the young jaguar tucks its heavy paws inward. The ground beneath is cool and forgiving, cushioned by a thick mattress of dried foliage that whispers softly with every subtle shift of weight. As day officially surrenders to night, the acoustic landscape transforms. The bright bird song of the afternoon fades, replaced by the steady, low-frequency hum of nocturnal insects waking up in the undergrowth. A chorus of crickets begins to vibrate through the tall grasses, accompanied by the occasional gentle splash of a meandering stream nearby. These rhythmic, predictable sounds wrap around the resting big cat like a heavy blanket. With eyes growing heavy and the amber twilight fading into the quiet safety of night, the subadult rests its chin upon its paws, letting the soothing cadence of the autumn evening guide it towards sleep. Deep within this sheltered earthen nook, the subadult's respiration slows into a steady, rhythmic cadence. Muscular shoulders, engineered by nature for explosive power, finally release their stored tension against the forest floor. A thick layer of amber foliage molds perfectly to the heavy contours of the growing frame, insulating the big cat against the descending chill of the Pantanal evening. Rest is not merely a pause in activity, it is a vital biological state where muscle fibers repair, bone density solidifies, and the vast sensory inputs of the day are quietly processed. The subadult's whiskers twitch once in a lingering dream of territorial patrols, then lie still. These specialized vibrissae, so finely tuned to air current and obstacles during daylight navigation, now rest in absolute tranquility. Above, the canopy forms a protective vault of golden leaves that continue to drift downward like slow-moving stars, carpeting the resting spot in layers of natural camouflage. The gentle autumn wind whispers softly through the branches, playing a lulling melody across the forest. A nearby stream adds a liquid counterpoint, bubbling over smooth stones with a steady, hypnotic murmur that blends seamlessly with the hum of nocturnal insects. Enveloped in the sanctuary of earth and falling leaves, the young jaguar sinks deeper into restorative slumber. Every breath is deep and even, drawing in the rich, earthy aromas of decaying wood and crisp autumn air. The boundaries between self and forest blur in the quiet dark. Safe within the familiar contours of the amber woods, the subadult rests in profound peace, gathering strength for the quiet mysteries of the approaching night. As the autumn sun begins its slow descent toward the horizon, painting the marshy wetlands in shades of amber and bruised violet, a cooling breeze sweeps over the damp earth. The humid summer air fades, replaced by the crisp, refreshing promise of the dry season. Whispering through the dry forest reeds, the gentle wind carries the earthy scent of receding water and decaying autumn leaves, rustling the canopy above where tired birdsong softens into the quiet hum of evening insects. Along this dynamic boundary where water meets solid ground, a subadult jaguar walks entirely alone. Gone is the reassuring presence of the mother who once guided these very steps. Every movement is deliberate, unhurried, and fluid. The young cat's rosette-patterned coat provides exceptional camouflage against the dappled shadows of the shoreline, blending seamlessly into the golden grasses and the dark, tangled roots of the riverbank. Pad by silent pad, the feline patrols the water's edge. Its large, round paws, equipped with partially retractable claws that have grown noticeably sharper, test the stability of the muddy banks before committing full weight. This solitary patrol is more than just territory maintenance. It is a vital test of instinct and physical adaptation. The jaguar pauses, lifting its broad head to the evening air. A Jacobson's organ in the roof of its mouth analyzes the complex chemical signatures of the breeze, tasting the scents of the marsh. Every nerve ending is finely tuned to the subtle vibrations of the ecosystem. As the flowing stream murmurs softly in the distance, the young predator moves deeper into the cooling twilight, stepping gracefully into the quiet threshold of maturity. Ahead, where the damp earth surrenders to a dense wall of tall golden reeds, a subtle rustling disturbs the stillness. The young cat freezes mid-stride. A deep, instinctual stillness settles over its muscular frame. Through the specialized rod-rich retinas in its golden eyes, the subadult tracks a sudden shift in the shadows. Something large is moving among the stalks, hidden just beyond the damp fringe of the marsh. Instantly, the high-riding posture of the patrol vanishes. The feline lowers its heavy body, flattening itself completely against the cooling earth. Every line of its physique transforms to minimize its profile. The powerful scapula shift beneath the rosette-patterned skin, adapting an ancient, low-slung stalking posture inherited through countless generations and refined over months of patient observation. With anatomical precision, the subadult begins to close the distance. Special cartilage in its wrist bones acts as a natural shock absorber, dampening the impact of each step and ensuring complete silence across the brittle autumn leaves. The movement is agonizingly slow, calculated, and fluid. The center of gravity remains low, anchored by a thick, heavy tail that twitches just slightly to maintain balance over the uneven, muddy terrain. Whiskers reach forward, sweeping the air to detect the faintest air currents and measure the exact distance to the hidden prey. Without the guiding presence of its mother, the burden of the hunt rests entirely upon these finely tuned mechanics. The young predator breathes softly, blending its heartbeat with the gentle rhythm of the evening breeze, melting further into the protective camouflage of the darkening reeds. Time itself seems to soften across the wetland. The subadult holds its breath, dissolving completely into the golden hues of the surrounding autumn foliage. In this quiet theater of the marsh, stillness is the most potent weapon. The fading sunlight casts long, amber shadows through the reeds, striping the feline's coat and breaking up its silhouette into a masterpiece of disruptive camouflage. Several yards away, the large capybara pauses its feeding, lifting its blunt snout to test the evening air. The slightest tremor in the grass could betray the hidden predator, but the young cat remains entirely unmoving. Its muscular frame is locked in a state of suspended animation. Metabolic energy hums quietly beneath the thick fur, yet the limbs do not twitch, and the wide paws maintain their grip on the cooling earth. Specialized adaptations govern every second of this silent vigil. The tapetum lucidum, a reflective layer behind the retina, captures the diminishing ambient light, amplifying every photon to keep the unaware target in sharp, unyielding focus. The ears swivel independently, capturing the rhythmic chewing of the rodent and the gentle rustle of dry stems swaying in the breeze. Patience stretches like a slow-moving river. There is no urgency now, only the steady discipline of the stalk. Every drop of wind flows over the cat without resistance, carrying its scent away from the prey. The waiting game demands absolute restraint, testing the maturity of the growing feline as it learns the profound art of restraint. The shadows deepen, painting the marsh in cool twilight, and the subadult waits for the world to turn just an inch closer. The moment shatters. With the suddenness of a falling star, the suspended animation explodes into raw, kinetic grace. The young jaguar does not merely run, it uncoils with an eruption of pure, concentrated muscle. Rear limbs, built for explosive power rather than endurance, compress and release against the damp earth, driving the heavy-framed cat forward in a single, magnificent bound. Distance vanishes. The golden reeds blur as the subadult bridges the gap between concealment and contact with breathtaking acceleration. Every ounce of the feline's growing mass is channeled into the forward trajectory, turning the lithe body into a living missile of velvet and sinew. There is no sound of warning, only the rush of displaced air. The capybara barely has time to register the shadow detaching from the twilight before heavy, muscular paws connect with unstoppable force. The impact is staggering, knocking the breath from the larger mammal as the subadult drives its weight downward, pinning the target firmly against the cooling autumn soil. Instinct guides the final, crucial placement. Unlike other great cats that target the throat, the jaguar relies on a more formidable evolutionary design. The massive zygomatic arches, the wide cheekbones housing immense jaw muscles, tighten with terrifying pressure. The short, robust skull and specialized canine teeth are engineered for a singular, bone-crushing purpose. With a powerful thrust, the jaws close, delivering the signature skull-piercing bite directly through the temporal bone. The struggle ceases almost instantly. The overwhelming force of the bite neutralizes any danger, ending the pursuit with absolute anatomical efficiency. Panting softly in the quiet evening air, the young cat stands victorious over its first entirely independent harvest, feeling the heavy, reassuring weight of absolute self-reliance settling deep into its bones as the last embers of sunset fade from the sky. Beneath the deepening indigo of the autumn sky, the young jaguar rests its chin upon soft forepaws, marveling at the quiet stillness of its prize. This final, decisive moment is the culmination of millions of years of anatomical refinement. The jaguar's skull is a masterclass in biomechanics, built uniquely heavy and wide to house the most powerful jaw muscles relative to body size of any felid. Unlike leopards or lions that favor the delicate vulnerability of a throat clamp, the jaguar's evolutionary path carved a different route through the ecosystem. The broad zygomatic arches flare wide, creating massive anchor points for the temporalis and masseter muscles, the biological engines driving this crushing force. As the subadult gently tests the grip, the specialized canines, reinforced with internal ridges to resist bending under immense loads, demonstrate the precise engineering required to pierce not just hide, but thick bone and armored shell alike. This formidable crushing pressure bypasses the need for prolonged suffocation, delivering instant, merciful cessation. It is an adaptation forged in the dense prehistoric forests, designed for subduing turtles, armored fish, and large terrestrial prey with absolute efficiency. Now, in the calm embrace of the twilight, the biological machinery rests. The evening air grows cooler, carrying the gentle scent of damp earth and rustling leaves. The young cat breathes deeply, its chest rising and falling in a slow, hypnotic rhythm. Surrounded by the whispering reeds and the faint, distant hum of nocturnal insects, the solitary hunter begins to feed, anchored safely in the quiet confidence of its own capable strength, drifting slowly toward a well-earned slumber. Darkness settles softly over the whispering marshlands, wrapping the forest edge in a blanket of cool, autumnal calm. The subadult jaguar lies close to the earth, feeling the steady, reassuring warmth of its very first earned meal against its chest. A gentle breeze whispers through the damp reeds, carrying the earthy fragrance of wet soil and dormant foliage. The daytime chorus of birdsong fades away, replaced by the rhythmic, soothing hum of nocturnal insects and the distant, melodic murmur of a flowing stream. With every slow, deliberate breath, the young cat digests its meal, its muscles relaxing completely after the intense exertion of the hunt. This moment of profound rest is vital for the growing metabolism, allowing the heavy bones and dense musculature to recover under the cover of night. Self-reliance settles deep into the feline's consciousness, a quiet transformation reshaping its instincts from dependence to absolute autonomy. Soon, as the silver moonlight begins to filter through the canopy, another instinct will awaken, the quiet urge to declare ownership over this newly claimed range through subtle scent marking along the forest paths. But for now, there is only stillness. The heavy eyelids droop under the heavy velvet of evening, and the solitary hunter drifts peacefully into a deep, restoring slumber, cradled by the wild, unchanging rhythms of the autumn wetlands. As the last amber light fades from the upper canopy, the cool breath of autumn settles gently over the Pantanal. Shadows lengthen across the damp earth, and the forest transitions into the quiet rhythms of dusk. Out from the shelter of a broad-leaved vine thicket emerges the subadult jaguar. Its movement is a study in fluid grace, each step placed with quiet deliberation along a well-worn wildlife corridor. Soft footfalls barely disturb the carpet of rustling leaves beneath its heavy paws. The cooling air carries the steady, rhythmic hum of distant insects settling in for the night, mingling with the low, melodious calls of nocturnal birds beginning their evening chorus. A gentle wind drifts through the branches, rustling the golden foliage above and washing over the young predator's sensitive whiskers. This evening journey is more than a simple walk. It marks the beginning of an instinctive patrol. As the subadult navigates the familiar animal pathways, its amber eyes scan the deepening shadows of the understory. Every sense is finely tuned to the subtle shifts in the environment. The maturation of the nervous system and the rising surge of independent hormones guide the cat forward. away from the familiar hunting grounds of its mother and deeper into the unclaimed rhythms of the wider wilderness. With each measured stride, the young jaguar anchors its growing presence to the land, stepping softly into the cool evening as an emerging force within the complex social tapestry of the watershed. Ahead along the trail stands a towering, pale-barked strangler fig, its smooth trunk polished by the shoulders of generations of passing cats. This living monument serves as a vital communications hub in the dense forest network. The subadult approaches the familiar post with deliberate slowness, stopping just inches from the pale wood. Raising its finely tuned nose, the young predator inhales deeply. Specialized vomeronasal organs in the roof of its mouth analyze the complex chemical signatures left behind by older territorial neighbors, translating an invisible library of scents into rich social data. Every lingering molecule tells a story of who has passed this way before. Satisfied with the survey, the cat initiates the physical mechanics of broadcast communication. It lifts its head, pressing the side of its face firmly against the smooth bark. With eyes half closed in slow, rhythmic contentment, it drags its cheek and neck downward in a long, sweeping motion. Sebaceous glands lining the lips, chin, and cheeks release a specialized oily secretion onto the tree. This meticulous chin rubbing deposits sebum containing unique individual pheromones, a personal signature designed to weather slowly in the humid air. Next, the cat turns to reinforce the message with an auditory and visual cue. It shifts its weight backward over muscular hind legs, driving its sharp claws downward into the soft earth at the base of the roots. Vigorous ground-scratching tears at the soil and leaves distinct visual gouges while depositing additional scent from interdigital glands hidden between the toe pads. The young jaguar lingers in the quiet air, feeling the steady thrum of its own maturing instincts merge with the ancient traditions of the wilderness. Turning around with deliberate calm, the young predator positions itself closely against the pale bark of the strangler fig. With its thick tail lifted high, it delivers a fine, targeted mist of scent directly onto the trunk at nose height for passing travelers. This practiced act of urine spraying is far more than a simple boundary marker. It is a complex biochemical broadcast finely tuned by evolution. Within the liquid spray, specialized chemical compounds carry an intricate biological message. Volatile organic molecules and proteins dissolve into the humid autumn air, conveying vital information regarding the cat's exact age, sex, and current physiological readiness. To any wandering adult that happens to inspect this post in the gathering twilight, the scent profile serves as an unmistakable identification card. It speaks of a growing body, increasing strength, and the steady approach of independence. The specialized scent glands within the skin and the composition of the urine work in tandem to ensure the message endures through the shifting weather of the river basin. As the moisture slowly evaporates into the quiet evening breeze, it leaves behind a persistent, heavy residue that clings to the smooth wood. This invisible boundary layer resists the evening dew, holding fast to the bark through the dark hours. The subadult watches the pale trunk for a quiet moment, knowing its personal chemistry is now woven permanently into the ancient, silent network of the forest. Leaving the damp bark of the strangler fig behind, the subadult shifts its focus to the rich earth at the base of the tree. With the deliberate stillness of a stalking shadow, the young cat positions its muscular frame directly over a patch of loose forest soil. This moment demands a different dimension of communication, one that speaks simultaneously to the eyes and the nose of the wider wilderness. Slowly, the predator lowers its haunches and engages its heavy hind paws in a rhythmic, powerful raking motion. With measured strokes, powerful claws drag deeply through the leaf litter, tearing open the damp humus and churning the dark earth. This vigorous ground scratching is a masterpiece of mammalian engineering. Hidden deep between the cat's toe pads lie specialized interdigital sweat glands, which release a rich, oily secretion into the disturbed soil with every single scrape. As the earth parts, these microscopic chemical cues mingle intimately with the freshly exposed minerals and decaying leaves. The resulting scrape creates a vivid, dual-purpose monument. To any passing adult, the freshly carved trenches offer an unmistakable visual signpost that demands immediate investigation, while the crushed earth releases a heavy, localized cloud of scent that lingers close to the forest floor. The rhythmic scraping slows, growing softer and more deliberate until the young jaguar finally stills its limbs. It lowers its head to gently sniff the newly turned earth, verifying the depth of the mark it has just left upon the landscape. Satisfied with the rich olfactory blend of freshly tilled soil and personal perspiration, the cat exhales a long, warm breath into the cooling evening air. The forest floor now bears the undeniable signature of an independent life, taking its rightful place within the ancient rhythms of the river basin. With the physical labor of the earth scrape complete, the young predator lifts its heavy head, turning its attention away from the soil and toward the invisible tapestry floating through the evening breeze. The cooling air carries a shifting mosaic of scents, drifting along the wildlife corridor from distant corners of the watershed. To decode this complex chemical landscape, the subadult raises its muzzle and parts its lips in a slow, deliberate flamen response. By pulling air across the nasopalatine canals leading directly to the vomeronasal organ, or Jacobson's organ, situated in the roof of its mouth, the cat unlocks a wealth of hidden information. This specialized olfactory machinery allows the subadult to taste the very molecules of the forest, bypassing mere aroma to read a detailed biological history. Wave after wave of scent washes over the sensory receptors. The young jaguar processes the overlapping chemical signatures left by neighboring territorial adults, identifying distinct markers of age, sex, and reproductive state. A pungent burst of urine on a distant palm trunk reveals the presence of an established male whose range overlaps this fertile river edge, while a subtler, lingering musk speaks of a resident female who passed this way days earlier. Crucially, the subadult detects no signs of immediate confrontation in these drifting messages. The boundary lines are well established, creating a fluid social hierarchy where information is shared silently across the miles. Rather than inciting fear or aggression, the rich olfactory blend instills a profound sense of place. The cat closes its mouth, exhaling softly as it fully comprehends its expanding world. Knowing its own newly minted scent now joins this ancient, silent conversation winding through the deepening night. As the deep blue of twilight surrenders to the velvet shadows of night, the cooling air carries a gentle wind through the rustling leaves of the upper canopy. Distant insects thrum a steady, lulling rhythm, accompanied by the occasional soft call of nightbirds settling into their roosts. Amidst this symphony of the dark wetland, the subadult jaguar completes its quiet journey by pressing its warm flank against the smooth-barked trunk of the freshly marked tree. This simple, heavy leaning against the bark is more than a moment of physical rest. It is a profound biological milestone. The damp, musky signature of the cat mingles seamlessly with the cool wood fibers, cementing its developing identity as an autonomous individual. Every sweep of the chin and every scrape of the earth has woven the young predator into the intricate social fabric of the Pantanal watershed. Maturation is a gradual unfurling, marked not by sudden leaps, but by quiet afternoons and evenings spent claiming a corner of the world. By broadcasting its presence through specialized olfactory communication, the subadult steps firmly away from the shelter of maternal bonds. It no longer needs to follow in another's paw prints. Instead, it stands anchored in its own developing strength, reading the invisible boundaries of the ecosystem while quietly drawing its own. With eyes half closed and muscles slowly uncoiling into sleep, the the cat breathes in the familiar, reassuring scent of its own making. The forest whispers around it, holding the promise of solitude, self-reliance, and countless quiet nights stretching out beneath the southern stars. High above the canopy, a clear autumn sky stretches in a vast canopy of silver and starlight. The air in the river valley is crisp, carrying the dry, earthy scent of fallen leaves and cooling stone. Along an elevated forest ridge, two silent shadows move in parallel, their powerful forms draped in gold and velvet shadow. For nearly 2 years, this maternal bond has been the absolute anchor of the young jaguar's existence. In the science of felid behavior, this phase marks the critical threshold of territorial dispersal, where juvenile dependence naturally dissolves into solitary self-reliance. Yet tonight, there is no sudden tension, no sharp vocalization. Instead, mother and subadult travel with a fluid grace born of shared ancestry and countless miles of joint hunting. Their heavy paws tread softly upon a bed of rustling leaves, accompanied by the low, steady murmur of a flowing stream cutting through the valley floor far below. In the distance, the resonant hoot of an owl pulses through the cool air, blending with the steady, rhythmic hum of nocturnal insects. Though they move along the same ancient game trail, a subtle shift in spacing defines the night. The subadult drifts slightly wider, taking the lower edge of the ridge, while the mother maintains the higher ground. Their steps remain loosely synchronized, yet each breath and footfall now belongs to a separate consciousness. The young predator's muscles ripple beneath a thickening autumn coat, finely tuned to the subtle vibrations of the forest. Every twitch of its rounded ears absorbs the rich tapestry of the midnight watershed, processing the territory not merely as a shared home, but as an expansive, waiting frontier. They pause near the edge of a slow-moving river where the water mirrors the pinprick constellations overhead. Standing side by side on the damp silt, the sheer parity of their forms becomes undeniable. The young cat is no longer a clumsy cub relying on maternal protection, but a formidable predator boasting the deep chest, heavy shoulders, and massive bone structure characteristic of the species. In terms of physical development and biological maturity, the subadult has reached a near equal footing in size and hunting capability. Months of shadowing the mother through dense undergrowth and practicing nocturnal ambushes have forged lethal precision. The broad paws and thick, muscular neck are fully equipped to bring down large prey, signaling that the developmental journey from complete dependence to biological readiness is complete. Etched against the moonlit water, the mother glances sideways at her offspring. There is a quiet recognition passing between them, a biological acknowledgement that the energy required to raise a single descendant has successfully culminated in a fully functioning adult. The ecosystem demands this spacing out of apex predators, regulating local populations through natural territorial dispersal. By matching the mother's stature, the subadult has triggered the instinctive boundary where social hierarchy shifts from maternal care to mutual avoidance. The gentle wind stirs the reeds along the bank, carrying the cool moisture of the stream upward into the forest. For a long moment, neither cat moves, suspended in the equilibrium of their shared history. No roars fracture the midnight air, nor are there any displays of aggression. In the quiet language of solitary cats, separation is negotiated through the subtler channels of posture, low-frequency vibrations, and chemistry. The mother steps forward toward a rough-barked mahogany tree standing sentinel at the river's edge. She presses her cheek against the trunk, leaving behind the rich, oily secretions of her submandibular glands, a chemical signature that marks the boundary of her maternal investment and declares her permanent domain. The subadult moves into her place, inhaling deeply to process the complex profile of pheromones. This scent-marking behavior is a cornerstone of feline social hierarchy, instantly communicating identity, reproductive status, and territorial claim without the need for physical conflict. In response, The young cat presses its own forehead against the bark just above the mother's mark, depositing its unique chemical profile into the shared air of the watershed. A low, resonant purr rumbles from deep within the mother's chest, a sound more felt than heard through the damp autumn soil. It is an ancient, calming vibration, devoid of the sharp tones used to summon a wayward cub, serving instead as a final, silent validation. The subadult answers with a softer, higher-pitched exhalation, acknowledging the transition. Their pelts brush briefly, a fleeting touch of warmth against the cool night breeze, before the physical contact gracefully dissolves. There is no lingering hesitation, only the steady pulse of instinct guiding them toward the inevitable geometry of the forest, where apex predators must ultimately walk alone. The mother turns first, her muscular shoulders rolling smoothly beneath her rosette-patterned coat as she follows the familiar contours of the riverbank. Every step is an assertion of established territory, a deliberate pacing that honors years of navigation within her core watershed. She moves with the effortless grace of an apex predator returning to the center of her domain, her dark silhouette soon dissolving into the shadows of the overhanging canopy where the forest whispers old, reliable secrets. The subadult lingers for a single heartbeat, watching the familiar form recede into the silver-dappled darkness before pivoting in the opposite direction. Ahead lies an untracked ribbon of game trail leading away from the river bend and deeper into the uncharted acreage of the expansive valley. This territorial dispersal is a vital ecological mechanism, ensuring that populations remain distributed and resources are never over-harvested. By stepping into this vacant niche, the young cat obeys an ancient law of the ecosystem, relieving pressure on the local prey base while claiming a future of its own. The air along the new path carries the crisp, earthy scent of damp leaves and distant marshlands. There is no mother to flush the caiman from the shallows or guide the stealthy approach toward a capybara resting in the reeds. Every rustle in the underbrush and every snap of a fallen twig now demands absolute, undivided attention. The young jaguar lifts its chin, drawing in the cool autumn breeze, and steps forward into the quiet night, fully embracing the profound, beautiful solitude of the wild. For the very first time, every decision rests entirely upon the broad shoulders of the young jaguar. There is no older, wiser presence to follow, no shared instinct to lean upon when an uncertainty arises in the shadows. The forest is vast, breathing softly beneath a canopy of autumn stars, and the silence it offers is both heavy and liberating. The subadult pauses beside a moss-covered log, pressing its powerful paws firmly into the damp soil as it listens. Every nocturnal sound of the forest, the high-pitched trill of tree frogs, the rhythmic hum of late-season insects, and the distant, resonant hoot of a barred owl takes on a new, sharper significance. Nothing is filtered through another's awareness anymore. It tests the cool wind, drawing in complex currents of air to register unfamiliar scents, mapping the invisible boundaries of its new domain one molecule at a time. This is the psychological threshold of absolute solitude, a delicate neurological transition where a solitary hunter recalibrates its internal compass. Without the safety net of maternal guidance, the young predator's focus narrows, heightening its responsiveness to the subtle shifts in the ecosystem. A gentle wind sweeps through the branches, causing golden leaves to drift downward like falling stars, rustling softly against its spotted flank. The jaguar stands entirely still, grounded in the quiet reality of its own sovereign territory. There is a deep, settling peace in the realization that it belongs completely to itself, ready to walk the dark trails of the watershed under the watchful eyes of the night. As the deep hours of the night begin to soften, the young jaguar seeks refuge within the sheltering embrace of a low-hanging hollow. Overhead, a dense canopy of broad leaves creates a natural ceiling, filtering the fading starlight into a mosaic of quiet shadows. The air here is cool and still, carrying the rich, damp aroma of river silt and fallen autumn foliage. Settling onto a bed of dry moss, the subadult curls its muscular frame into a compact circle, tucking its nose beneath its heavy paws. The rhythmic, flowing murmur of the nearby stream provides a steady acoustic backdrop, lulling the nervous system into a state of profound rest. This behavioral shift from active patrol to restorative sleep is vital for metabolic conservation, allowing the solitary predator to process the sensory wealth gathered during hours of nocturnal navigation. Without the shared warmth of maternal grooming, the young cat relies entirely on its own thick winter coat and the insulating shelter of the landscape to maintain core body temperature. Its breathing deepens, falling into a slow, measured cadence that matches the gentle pulse of the surrounding ecosystem. Every muscle relaxes, releasing the lingering tension of territorial dispersal and the profound psychological adjustment of the past few hours. In this quiet sanctuary beneath the forest floor, the boundaries of the new domain dissolve into dreams of starlit trails and untamed rivers. The night wanes slowly, sliding toward the edge of dawn, leaving the sovereign young hunter resting in absolute peace. A thick, velvet blanket of autumn mist drifts slowly across the sprawling Pantanal floodplain, hushing the winding waterways in a cool embrace. As the seasonal transition cools the humid air, condensation clings heavy to the emerald canopy, sending slow, rhythmic droplets splashing onto the damp earth below. The world is wrapped in a soothing, monochromatic gray, softened by the quiet hush of dawn. High above the riverbank, resting motionless upon an elevated rocky outcropping, a solitary young adult jaguar dissolves seamlessly into the shadows. Its magnificent coat, a complex tapestry of golden fur and dark, ink-filled rosettes, blurs against the glistening stone. At this crucial life stage, fully independent and possessing the robust, muscular frame of maturity, the great cat is the undisputed master of this newly claimed domain. The morning air is laced with moisture and the earthy scent of damp moss, stirring the jaguar's acute olfactory senses. Its rounded ears twitch slightly, catching the distant, muffled calls of waking egrets and the gentle, bubbling murmur of the river current winding through the reeds. A soft, cool breeze carries the chill of the shifting season, yet the apex predator remains perfectly still, conserving its energy as it thermoregulates against the autumn drop in temperature. Its chest rises and falls in a slow, hypnotic rhythm, perfectly synchronized with the tranquil pulse of the awakening wilderness. There is no rush, no uncertainty in this solitary existence, only the quiet confidence of a sovereign resting safely within the heart of its own kingdom, waiting for the first golden rays of the sun to pierce the mist. As dawn deepens the gray shadows along the riverbank, the young jaguar lifts its powerful, blocky head, shifting from rest into a state of heightened awareness. Its rounded ears twitch independently, swiveling to catch every muted sound traveling through the dense fog. Mammalian hearing is exceptionally sharp at this frequency, allowing the great cat to isolate the soft splash of a caiman sliding into the water and the delicate rustling of reeds where capybaras stir in the shallows. Without opening its eyes fully, the predator reads the invisible story of its territory written upon the damp air. Its wide nose catches a complex stream of olfactory cues carried on the chilled autumn breeze. A specialized organ in the roof of its mouth, the vomeronasal organ, analyzes the floating chemical signatures, delivering precise details regarding neighboring wildlife activity. It registers the faint, musky trace of a rival male passing safely beyond the southern boundary line hours earlier, alongside the fresh, reassuring scent of resident prey species moving through the lower floodwaters. This sensory intake requires no physical exertion, perfectly suited to the solitary nature of an apex predator conserving its energy. By simply listening and breathing, the jaguar maps the shifting dynamics of the wetland. The heavy moisture acts as a natural amplifier, holding scents close to the earth and dampening sound waves into a soothing, low-frequency hum. Resting its chin back upon the cool, dew-kissed stone, the young adult processes these environmental updates with quiet assurance, secure in the knowledge that its sovereign range remains undisturbed within the quiet embrace of the morning mist. From its elevated perch, the great cat rises in one fluid, powerful motion. It elongates its heavily muscled frame, extending its forelegs forward and pressing its broad chest low to the ancient stone before arching its spine in a deep, satisfying stretch. Every contour of the jaguar's physique speaks of prime physical maturity. A thick, dense coat patterned with intricate rosettes ripples smoothly over shoulders built for raw, explosive force. This robust musculature and exceptional bone density are the hallmarks of a fully independent apex predator, uniquely adapted to both the dense foliage of the floodplain and the deep, winding channels of the river. Stepping forward with unhurried grace, the feline positions itself at the absolute edge of the rocky promontory. It looks out over the vast, serpentine river valley where the dense autumn fog slowly begins to drift and thin. The cat's amber eyes, clear and luminous in the gray light, survey the sprawling expanse with the calm, sovereign awareness of a true ruler. There is no tension in its posture, only the quiet confidence of an animal that has successfully claimed and secured its domain. Every winding tributary, every dense stand of timber, and every elevated bank within this rich mosaic of wetlands falls under its silent jurisdiction. As the morning warmth begins to breathe life into the damp air, the young adult remains perfectly still, a statuesque silhouette against the fading mist. It observes the awakening landscape below, watching the interplay of shadow and light upon the water without a trace of anxiety. This domain is its own, maintained through strength, patience, and absolute mastery of the wild. With the vast panorama firmly in view, the young adult turns its attention inward to the immediate boundaries of its rocky citadel. Independence requires constant, subtle affirmation, a silent dialogue written upon the landscape for neighboring rivals to read. Lowering its massive head, the cat approaches a smooth-faced boulder worn round by ancient rains. It gently presses its cheek against the stone, sliding its face along the rough mineral surface. Hidden sebaceous glands lining the lips and cheeks leave behind a complex chemical signature, a persistent olfactory message communicating identity, physiological condition, and sovereign ownership to any passing wanderer. This behavior is fundamental to solitary territorial defense, relying on scent rather than direct confrontation to minimize energy expenditure and reduce the risk of injury. Continuing its methodical circuit, the cat pauses over a patch of damp earth near the edge of the ledge. With slow, deliberate strokes, it draws its powerful hind paws backward through the soil, carving deep, clean furrows. Interdigital glands located between the paw pads deposit a secondary layer of scent directly into the freshly exposed ground. The combination of visual disturbance and chemical marking creates an unmistakable boundary marker that lingers in the humid autumn air. There is a profound economy in these movements. Every scrape and rub is executed with calm precision, reflecting the adaptive intelligence of a mature apex predator securing its home range without a sound. The physical exertion is minimal, yet the impact across the ecosystem is absolute. Having reaffirmed the edges of its immediate sanctuary, the great cat lifts its head, tasting the gentle breeze as it carries the rich, quiet messages of the awakening floodplain far beyond the stone. High above the winding river, a subtle shift begins to stir the gray stillness of the morning. Slanted rays of pale golden autumn sunlight pierce the dense ceiling of mist, painting the damp canopy in shimmering hues of amber and bronze. As the warmth of the sun deepens, the heavy white vapor begins to rise, curling upward in lazy and translucent ribbons that dissolve gently into the upper air. This gradual clearing acts like a theater curtain drawing back upon a grand stage. slowly revealing the intricate, living network of the Jaguar's sovereign domain. Below the rocky ledge, the retreating fog unveils a vast expanse of lush gallery forests, winding waterways, and emerald floodplains glistening with heavy condensation. Every leaf and blade of grass catches the new light, dripping with cool moisture that feeds the rich autumnal soil. This seasonal transition brings a quiet clarity to the landscape, sharply defining the boundaries of deep lagoons and muddy riverbanks where caimans rest and capybaras graze. The young adult watches this daily unveiling with tranquil patience. Bathed in the rising warmth, the cat pauses to regulate its body temperature, absorbing the gentle heat of the morning sun against its dense, rosette-patterned fur. The thermoregulatory comfort of this sunlit moment eases the residual chill of the damp dawn, grounding the predator deeply within its environment. As the last lingering wisps of fog vanish over the distant tree line, the entire floodplain stands illuminated in breathtaking detail, a vibrant, interconnected world fully claimed, deeply understood, and peacefully at rest beneath the watchful gaze of its master. The warmth of the morning sun now settles deep into the surrounding stone, signaling the natural shift from quiet rest to purposeful action. With slow, measured steps, the young adult jaguar rises from the sun-warmed ledge, its powerful muscles shifting smoothly beneath a coat of thick autumn fur. It pauses for a final, sweeping glance across the illuminated valley before turning its focus toward the dense, green understory below. Beginning its descent, the great cat negotiates the sloping rocks with practiced, effortless stealth. Every placement of its wide paws is deliberate and soundless, designed to navigate the damp, leaf-strewn earth without disturbing the tranquil quiet of the forest floor. The ambient sounds of the floodplain, the gentle rustling of reeds along the water's edge, and the muffled songs of waking birds blend into a soothing, natural rhythm that guides its path. Entering the shadows of the gallery forest, the jaguar moves along established trails worn deep into the terrain by generations of its kind. This continuous utilization of familiar pathways allows the apex predator to patrol its sovereign range with ultimate efficiency, conserving energy while remaining fully attuned to every subtle scent and rustle in the brush. As it steps deeper into the leafy labyrinth to begin its daily routine, the solitary hunter becomes entirely one with the breathing, living expanse of the Pantanal, perfectly at peace within the boundaries of its secure and thriving home. Across the vast expanse of the tropical lowlands, the heavy seasonal shift arrives not with sudden violence, but with a deep, cooling breath. Winter in this flooded wilderness brings the anticipated rains, a vital meteorological rhythm that transforms the parched earth into a lush sanctuary. High above the dense understory, heavy droplets begin their descent, pattering rhythmically against broad, waxy canopy leaves. Each falling drop creates a cascading chain reaction, sending shimmering liquid beads tumbling from branch to branch, until a soft, continuous veil of precipitation drapes the entire forest. This gentle deluge breathes new life into the ecosystem. Small, sluggish streams swell with clear, oxygen-rich runoff, murmuring softly as they carve refreshed paths through the rich alluvial soil. The air grows cool and heavy, saturated with the rich scent of damp loam, crushed foliage, and awakening mosses. It is an immersive, hypnotic soundscape, the steady hum of rain, the melodic rush of flowing water, and the quiet rustling of leaves bowing beneath the moisture. Insects quiet their daytime frequencies, replaced by the soothing white noise of the storm. In this transformed landscape, thermal regulation becomes effortless for the region's inhabitants. The dropping temperatures offer a welcome respite from the fierce equatorial heat, prompting a quiet awakening across the watershed. Every frond and fern glistens under the dim, diffused light of the overcast late afternoon, casting long, soft shadows across the damp earth. The forest settles into a peaceful, slumberous hush, wrapped in the comforting embrace of the winter rain. Emerging from the dense shelter of overhead boughs, the adult jaguar steps into the softly falling veil of mist and rain. There is an inherent mastery in its locomotion, a testament to years of prime physical conditioning. Each heavy paw makes contact with the rain-softened earth with absolute silence, the broad pads distributing its substantial mass evenly across the damp debris and fallen logs. Its musculoskeletal design is a marvel of evolutionary specialization. Short, exceptionally muscular limbs provide a low center of gravity, granting the cat supreme balance as it navigates slick embankments and tangled root systems. The scapulae, unattached to the clavicle, glide smoothly beneath the thick skin, allowing the forelegs to absorb every undulation of the terrain without a single jarring motion. There is no wasted effort, no hesitation. Every forward stride flows into the next with liquid grace, propelled by powerful hindquarters built for sudden, explosive power, yet perfectly restrained in this quiet, unhurried patrol. The cool moisture settles into its dense, compact rosetted coat, darkening the rich golden tan fur and sharpening the contrast of the bold dark rosettes. This specialized pelage acts as a natural watershed, shedding the persistent drizzle while keeping the warm muscle beneath insulated from the chilling air. As the big cat threads its way through the dripping labyrinth of ferns and vines, its broad head stays low and level, eyes scanning the mist with unwavering focus. It moves like a living shadow, a seamless extension of the wet wilderness, perfectly adapted to the silent rhythms of the rainy dusk. As the low winter sun struggles to pierce the heavy, water-laden canopy, the diffused gray light works a quiet alchemy upon the forest floor. Here, in the dim hush of late afternoon, the jaguar's coat becomes a masterclass in biological camouflage. The pelt is a dense mosaic of deep golden tan, overlaid with dark, complex rosettes that encircle smaller spots, a signature adaptation known scientifically as disruptive coloration. In the flat, rainy illumination, these geometric patterns break up the solid outline of the feline form, merging its muscular contours effortlessly with the vertical shadows of dripping trunks and overlapping fern fronds. The science of this coat lies in its environmental dialogue. The jaguar's pattern mimics the dappled interplay of light and shadow found on the tropical floor, rendering the massive predator virtually invisible to both prey and rival alike. As a single droplet traces down the flank, catching a rare beam of silver light before disappearing into the thick undercoat, the fur responds to the ambient moisture. The outer guard hairs are coarse and tightly packed, creating a water-resistant barrier that prevents the chilling winter rain from reaching the skin. Beneath this sleek exterior, a dense underfur traps a layer of body heat, insulating the cat against the cool atmospheric drop. Every inch of the pelt is tuned to the forest's wet textures. The dark rosettes echo the irregular patches of wet earth and decaying leaf litter, while the lighter undertones catch the muted greens of moss-covered bark. Pausing beside a swollen stream, the great cat pauses in the gentle drizzle. In this soft, watercolor light, the animal is no longer just a visitor in the wilderness. It is an inseparable thread of the landscape itself, perfectly woven into the rainy tapestry of the gathering dusk. Resuming its measured march, the great cat follows a familiar pathway carved into the earth by generations of its ancestors. This systematic patrol is an essential seasonal duty, a quiet reaffirmation of ownership across miles of flooded watershed. With each broad, padded paw placed silently upon the rain-softened soil, the jaguar reads an invisible library of scents carried on the cool afternoon breeze. The falling precipitation intensifies these olfactory messages, washing airborne pheromones downward and binding them to the wet leaves and damp bark. Lifting its heavy head, the feline inhales deeply, drawing air across the Jacobson's organ in the roof of its mouth. This specialized anatomical feature decodes the complex chemical signatures left by passing capybara herds and neighboring rivals. updating the apex predator on every shift in the local ecosystem. There is no urgency in the stride, only a profound, unhurried confidence. The territorial boundaries must be checked, scent marks refreshed on prominent buttress roots, and the shifting dynamics of the forest monitored as the winter rains swell the nearby waterways. The surrounding jungle responds to the relentless patter of drops with a soothing, white noise symphony. Rustling leaves brush against the cat's muscular shoulders, yet the animal moves through the dense vegetation with fluid ease, unimpeded by the tangled undergrowth. Every muscle and sinew functions in silent harmony, displaying the peerless physical conditioning of a prime adult in its absolute prime. As the fading daylight surrenders further to the gray dusk, the jaguar continues its solitary patrol, moving deeper into the tranquil, rain-washed sanctuary of the wilderness. Surrounded by an explosion of lush greenery and the steady, hypnotic rhythm of water droplets cascading from canopy to fern, the jaguar pauses beside a newly formed woodland pool. The entire ecosystem breathes in profound harmony with the weather, vibrant, resilient, and utterly undisturbed. Microscopic life and towering hardwood trees alike drink deeply from the winter precipitation, fueling a biological awakening that pulses through every stratum of the tropical wilderness. The cat stands motionless, a masterwork of natural camouflage melding seamlessly into the blurred grays and emerald greens of the late afternoon. Across the shallow expanse of water, small caimans drift quietly beneath the surface, while sleek tree frogs cling to dripping bromeliads, their calls softened by the pervasive patter of rain. The jaguar's amber eyes reflect this revitalized flooded world with calm detachment, registering every subtle ripple and shifting shadow without a single wasted movement. As a gentle breeze sweeps through the understory, carrying the rich, earthy fragrance of damp loam and blossoming orchids, the heavy feline settles its massive frame upon a moss-covered log. The surrounding insects hum a low, continuous lullaby, weaving together with the bubbling murmur of a nearby swollen stream. Here, in the shelter of the dense, overhanging foliage, the boundary between predator and environment dissolves entirely. Secure in its prime condition and absolute dominion over the watershed, the resting apex predator becomes one with the breathing earth, drifting peacefully into the quiet heart of the winter evening, beneath a dense cluster of giant tree ferns, where overlapping fronds weave a natural thatch against the persistent downpour. The adult jaguar discovers a secluded, earthen hollow. This sheltered recess offers a reliable thermal microclimate, protecting the apex predator's dense winter coat and powerful musculature from the chill of the descending evening. With fluid, unhurried grace, the great cat tucks its heavy paws beneath its chest, settling its muscular frame securely into the damp, fragrant soil. The steady rhythm of rain on the canopy above shifts into a soft, hypnotic patter, blending seamlessly with the gentle bubbling of the swollen stream nearby. Insects hum a low, drowsy lullaby through the fading twilight, vibrating at frequencies tuned to the humid atmosphere. The jaguar's respiration deepens, its rhythmic breathing matching the serene pulse of the revitalized tropical watershed. Every muscle relaxes, yet the cat remains biologically attuned to its surroundings, its sensitive whiskers registering the faintest shifts in the cool night air. As the last lingering light surrenders to the enveloping shadows of the jungle, the sovereign master of the marsh drifts peacefully into deep slumber. Protected by the timeless camouflage of its rosette-patterned coat and the secluded canopy of the dripping thicket, the jaguar rests in absolute harmony with the winter wilderness. The nocturnal realm belongs completely to the sleeping giant, wrapped in the quiet, restorative embrace of the seasonal rains. As the winter sun dips low toward the horizon, casting long, violet shadows across the expansive river bends, the sovereign of the marsh awakens. This is the dry season, when cooler air brings a stillness to the flooded palm forests, and the great cat begins its evening rounds. Every movement is a masterclass in silent power. In the prime of its life, this adult male jaguar is a marvel of evolutionary design. Broad shoulders roll beneath a dense coat of golden fur, beautifully patterned with dark rosettes that mirror the shifting, dappled light of the canopy. Weighing well over 200 pounds, his physique is exceptionally muscular, featuring exceptionally heavy bones and a wide, powerful skull engineered to deliver the strongest bite relative to body size of any big cat. Yet, despite this formidable bulk, his footfalls along the damp game trails are impossibly soft, absorbed entirely by a thick cushion of decaying leaves and soft mud. He moves with a slow, deliberate cadence, surveying a domain that stretches for miles along the waterways. The winter climate has lowered the water levels just enough to expose ancient root systems and smooth, muddy banks, creating natural highways that the sovereign knows intimately. There is no haste in his stride, only the quiet confidence of an undisputed apex predator surveying his realm. Every breath is measured, drawing in the cool, crisp evening air as distant water ripples gently against the reedy shores and a low, soothing insect hum fades into the rustling palm fronds above. A towering, smooth-barked kapoazu tree catches his amber gaze, standing like a sentinel near the water's edge. This familiar botanical marker has served as a bulletin board for generations of traveling cats, and the sovereign steps forward to tend to his administrative duties. Olfactory communication is the invisible fence of the marsh, a complex language written in chemistry that transcends the boundaries of sight and sound. He approaches the trunk and turns, lifting his muscular hindquarters to deposit a fine spray of specialized musk against the smooth bark. This invisible signature carries a wealth of biological data, broadcasting his exact age, hormonal status, and individual identity to any transient rival bold enough to wander through the river bends. Following this, he stretches his neck forward, pressing the scent glands located along his cheeks and lips deeply into the wood. He rubs from side to side, leaving behind a personal seal that lingers in the cool winter air long after he has vanished into the shadows. To complete the ritual, he engages in dual signage, turning to scrape the damp earth with his broad hind paws. Deep grooves open in the soil while specialized interdigital glands on the soles of his feet release yet another layer of pheromones into the ground. This combination of visual, tactile, and chemical messaging creates a multi-sensory warning system that commands absolute respect across the ecosystem. Having updated his territorial ledger, the great cat pauses for a quiet moment. He inhales deeply, tasting the freshening breeze that whispers through the rustling palm fronds above, before resuming his silent, rhythmic journey through the darkening domain. Leaving the firm earth behind, the sovereign steps effortlessly into the shallow waters of the flooded palm forest. The winter dry season has receded, leaving a vast, shimmering mirror of water pooled beneath towering canopies. Unlike many other members of the cat family, this apex predator possesses a profound affinity for aquatic realms. He wades into the cool shallows with absolute composure, each movement fluid and unhurried as the water laps gently against his tawny flanks. Beneath the surface, a hidden world of submerged roots, fallen fronds, and floating vegetation creates a labyrinth of complex terrain. Yet, the big cat navigates the hidden obstacles with the quiet grace of a creature entirely at home in both elements. His broad paws, equipped with slight webbing between the toes, distribute his weight evenly over the soft, shifting sediment below. He glides forward with barely a ripple, his dense, insulating winter coat repelling the cool water like oil. Every stride demonstrates his remarkable physical adaptation to the wetlands. Submerged logs and tangled vine networks are bypassed with effortless precision. His powerful shoulders roll beneath his skin, perfectly attuned to the shifting resistance of the aquatic environment. In this liquid twilight, surrounded by the towering silhouettes of palms, the jaguar moves as an intrinsic part of the flowing current itself, silent, powerful, and completely at peace within his sovereign domain. Emerging from the shallow waters of the flooded forest, the sovereign halts upon a smooth, elevated mud embankment overlooking the vast, darkening marsh. The setting sun casts a final amber glow across the wetlands, where the gentle evening wind carries the cooling scent of damp earth and distant river currents. Here, at the edge of his expansive domain, the great cat pauses to anchor his massive frame into the earth, preparing to broadcast a message that requires no physical confrontation. Deep within his broad chest, air fills the specialized, highly flexible larynx and the elongated hyoid bone, an anatomical adaptation unique to the genus Panthera that grants him the physiological capacity to roar. He opens his jaws wide, exhaling in a sequence of deep, resonant coughing roars that begin as heavy, rhythmic grunts and gradually slow into rhythmic, booming pulses. The acoustic waves ripple outward across the open wetlands, traveling with astonishing distance over the quiet water and low-lying reeds. These vibrations are not merely sounds, they are physical declarations of presence, felt as low, tremulous pulses in the air and soil by any rival passing through the borderlands. It is the voice of absolute dominion, a profound acoustic signature echoing over the silent marsh as the winter twilight deepens. With the final reverberations fading into the cooling air, the sovereign closes his mouth, his powerful jaw settling back into quiet repose. He stands motionless for a long moment, listening to the stillness return to the waterways, fully assured that his territory remains undisturbed. Beneath the darkening winter sky, the silhouette of the sovereign reveals the architectural mastery of his physical form. He is built not for prolonged speed across open plains, but for crushing power and absolute authority within the dense, tangled marshlands. His skull is exceptionally broad and rounded, housing massive zygomatic arches that anchor heavy, specialized chewing muscles. These anatomical adaptations grant him the strongest relative bite force of any big cat on Earth, a staggering pressure designed to bypass the thickest armadillo carapaces and pierce the cranial bones of heavy prey with effortless efficiency. Every contour of his muscular frame speaks of supreme adaptation. Short, densely packed limbs provide a low, stable center of gravity, allowing him to maneuver seamlessly through thick mud and navigate deep river channels without losing his balance. His shoulders ripple beneath a rich, rosette-patterned coat as he shifts his weight, showcasing a heavy chest and thick forelimbs forged for grappling. This dense, robust skeletal structure is the hallmark of an apex predator at the absolute peak of its physical prime. As the last amber hues of sunset dissolve into twilight, the great cat settles his heavy head upon his paws. The immense power held quietly within those jaws rests in perfect stillness, harmonizing with the cool evening breeze that murmurs through the surrounding palms. Secure in his unmatched strength, the sovereign closes his amber eyes, dissolving peacefully into the quiet rhythms of the winter night. High above the shifting currents of the wide river bend, a broad sandstone ledge offers a natural vantage point that commands the entire basin. Ascending the smooth rock with slow, deliberate grace, the sovereign settles his robust frame into a sheltered nook where the residual warmth of the day still lingers within the stone. Here, elevated above the damp chill of the winter marsh, he finds a secure resting place that provides both absolute dominion over his range and total protection from behind. He curls his powerful body into a tight, balanced crescent, tucking his heavy forepaws inward and resting his massive chin upon the cool earth. His rhythmic breathing deepens, matching the slow, gentle cadence of the distant water ripples brushing against the mudbanks below. Around him, the flooded palm fronds whisper softly in the mild night breeze, while a low, fading hum of nocturnal insects drifts across the calm expanse of the wetlands. Within this hidden alcove, every muscle of his exceptional physique slowly uncoils, yet remains tuned to the subtle vibrations of the earth. His thick, rosette furred coat acts as a natural blanket against the descending evening temperature, insulating the immense strength that keeps this ecosystem in delicate balance. Secure within the heart of his territory, the great cat lets his heavy eyelids drift shut. Surrounded by the tranquil sounds of the sleeping wilderness, he surrenders to a deep, restoring slumber, resting quietly as the sovereign of the water and the land. The cool, dry breath of the southern winter sweeps across the expansive Pantanal, lowering the water levels of the great neotropical wetland and transforming the flooded plains into a mosaic of exposed sandbanks and dense gallery forests. Under the vast canopy of the nocturnal sky, the solitary adult jaguar rests upon a moss-draped branch, perfectly camouflaged against the shadows. The air is alive with the steady hum of nocturnal insects and the soft, rhythmic patter of a gentle winter rain filtering through the high leaves, blending with the distant, murmuring flow of the receding river. In this season of cooler temperatures, the usual solitary rhythm of the apex predator shifts. Territorial boundaries, maintained meticulously through scent marks rubbed against rough bark and scraped earth, take on a new purpose. Suddenly, the low rumble of a deep vocalization carries across the damp night air, a resonant saw-like call vibrating through the undergrowth. This acoustic signal, traveling far across the open floodplains, announces the arrival of a traveling female drawn to the heart of the resident's home range. Jaguars are fundamentally solitary, coming together only for the briefest of imperatives, yet this evolutionary adaptation ensures the continuity of the species. The adult jaguar lifts its heavy head, ears pivoting forward to catch the subtle rustling of dry vegetation echoing from the tree line. The cool winter night, once a canvas of absolute isolation, now pulses with the ancient promise of a new generation. From the dense shadow of the gallery forest, a sleek silhouette emerges into the pale wash of starlight. The visiting female moves with fluid, deliberate grace, her rosette-patterned coat beaded with moisture from the steady winter rain. Every step is an exercise in cautious diplomacy. She pauses frequently, lowering her muzzle to investigate the aromatic messages left upon the rough bark of a strangler fig, chemical signatures that broadcast the resident male's dominance, health, and availability. Scent marking serves as the primary language of these solitary cats, allowing them to assess one another across vast expanses of the neotropical wetlands without risking direct conflict. Finding the fresh markers, the female responds not with tension, but with a series of low, rhythmic purrs that vibrate softly in the cool night air. The resident male steps down from his arboreal perch, his massive paws sinking silently into the damp soil. He approaches with his head held low, demonstrating a calm demeanor that dissolves any lingering hesitation. There is no aggression here, only a slow, deliberate convergence governed by evolutionary imperative. They touch noses in a quiet, tactile greeting, their whiskers brushing as they exchange familiar scents. This fleeting social interaction, brief and peaceful beneath the sheltering canopy, marks the delicate bridge between two independent lives. For a few quiet moments, the vastness of the winter wilderness narrows to the space between them, anchored by the ancient rhythm of survival and renewal playing out across the floodplain. Beneath the sprawling canopy, the dense jungle undergrowth cradles the pair in a temporary sanctuary. Unlike the fiercely defended borders that define most of their solitary existence, this brief window of coexistence is characterized by mutual tolerance and a profound, shared stillness. As the gentle winter rain taps a steady rhythm upon the broad leaves overhead, the jaguars settle close together in the shadows of the gallery forest. This non-aggressive phase is an essential evolutionary adaptation, relying on precise hormonal cues and suppressed territorial instincts. The male, normally fiercely protective of his expansive home range, extends a rare invitation of shared space. Side by side, they rest upon a thick carpet of fallen bromeliads and damp soil, their breathing synchronized with the low hum of nocturnal insects and the distant, soothing rush of the river flowing toward the floodplains. Every movement between them is deliberate and unhurried. They occasionally groom one another with rough, rasping tongues, reinforcing a temporary bond forged entirely by the seasonal pulse of the neotropical wetlands. In these quiet hours of the winter night, the boundaries of individual dominance soften. Guided by ancient instincts, they share the shelter of the forest floor, resting in a peaceful suspension of solitude as the cool air settles around them, whispering of new beginnings yet to come. As the first gray hints of dawn begin to filter through the tangled vines, the female stirs from the resting place. Her biological clock, finely tuned to the seasonal rhythms of the neotropical wetlands, urges her onward. Gestation will require an undisturbed sanctuary where she can safely birth and raise her upcoming litter away from the perils of the floodplain. She moves with fluid grace away from the temporary resting spot, navigating the labyrinth of the gallery forest with effortless stealth. Her keen eyes scan the shadowed terrain for a geological depression that offers absolute concealment. Moments later, she discovers a deeply recessed hollow tucked safely beneath the massive, ribbed buttress roots of an ancient strangler fig. This subterranean alcove provides an ideal nursery microclimate. The thick, interlocking roots form an impenetrable ceiling of natural architecture, shielding the interior from the damp chill of the gentle winter rain. Inside, the earthen floor is dry, layered with decades of decomposed organic matter and sheltered from the rising winter waters. She steps into the dark recess, turning in slow circles to tamp down the soft soil and test the acoustic and thermal insulation of the den. Evolutionary instinct dictates this meticulous selection. A secure den site is the single most critical parental investment she will make, drastically increasing the survival rate of the future generation. Satisfied with the profound security of the subterranean shelter, she settles deep within the shadows. Outside, the rain continues its soft patter against the broad fig leaves above, while the broader ecosystem hums with quiet resilience, cradling the newly conceived future of the Pantanal within the earth's quiet embrace. Leaving the sheltered nursery behind, the resident male resumes his solitary journey across the vast expanse of the winter home range. As a solitary apex predator, maintaining an expansive territory is a vital energetic investment. His powerful paws press silently into the damp soil as he embarks on an unhurried patrol, reinforcing scent marks along elevated ridges that remain safely above the seasonal floodwaters. Winter in the Pantanal brings a favorable shift in prey dynamics. As receding waters concentrate aquatic life and terrestrial mammals converge on higher ground, capybara and caiman become more abundant. This seasonal concentration of resources ensures that the male does not have to expend excessive energy in the hunt, allowing him to efficiently sustain his own robust frame while indirectly securing the broader ecosystem health that the expecting mother will soon rely upon. He pauses beside a sluggishly flowing river channel, his amber eyes reflecting the silver wash of moonlight breaking through the clouds. A low, resonant chuff vibrates deep within his chest, a quiet broadcast of continued dominance that discourages rival males from encroaching on the resource-rich domain. Every tree scraped and every pathway walked is a deliberate act of stabilization, balancing the complex social hierarchy of the wetlands. Satisfied that the boundaries are secure and food supplies remain plentiful, the great cat melts effortlessly back into the velvet shadows of the gallery forest. He moves with a slow, rhythmic grace, an enduring pillar of the neotropical wilds. The natural world settles deeper into the stillness of the night, cradling the silent promise of a thriving future generation within the timeless, flowing rhythm of the river basin. Above the sweeping canopy, the silvery moon drifts slowly across a vast, starlit sky, casting a gentle luminescence over the endless expanse of the sleeping floodplain. This ancient wetland, shaped by the eternal dance of wet and dry seasons, has sustained the lineage of the neotropical jaguar for countless generations. Every stride of the solitary guardian, every territorial boundary maintained, and every hidden refuge chosen beneath the sprawling buttress roots forms a vital thread in an intricate ecological tapestry. In the quiet hours before dawn, the landscape breathes as one. The distant murmur of the river winds through the gallery forest, harmonizing with the soft, steady hum of nocturnal insects and the gentle patter of a departing winter rain. Nature follows a profound, enduring rhythm where individual lives transition seamlessly into collective continuity. The adult male, now resting in the cool shadows of a high ridge, represents the current peak of a resilient biological lineage, a life forged in strength, patience, and perfect adaptation to the seasonal shifts of the earth. Though his prime years continue to anchor this sprawling domain, time flows forward like the waters of the basin. The invisible bonds connecting him to the new generation resting safely in the secluded den ensure that his legacy will endure long after his own nocturnal patrols have grown weary. As his heavy eyelids drift closed and his breathing deepens in the cool winter air, the wild heart of the Pantanal beats steadily on, cradling the quiet promise of tomorrow within the timeless, unbroken circle of life. High above the winding winter river, the Pantanal Ridge rests beneath a blanket of cool, silver mist. A gentle winter breeze carries the crisp scent of damp earth and distant water, rustling through the ancient, velvet moss that clings to the weathered sandstone. In the pre-dawn quiet, the ambient hum of nocturnal insects slowly fades, punctuated only by the soft, steady murmur of the gentle river current below and the distant, haunting hoot of an owl bidding farewell to the dark. Curled deeply against the ancient stone, an aging jaguar stirs from a heavy sleep. Years of commanding this vast riparian domain have left their subtle marks upon his magnificent frame. As he begins to awaken, a physiological reality of senescence settles into his joints. The cooler winter air deepens the natural stiffness in hips and shoulders that have weathered a decade of territorial defense. Unlike the endless, restless wandering of his youth, his body now dictates a profound metabolic adaptation. To conserve precious calories as seasonal temperatures drop, his heart rate remains slow, and every tiny shift is calculated for maximum energy preservation. He stretches one heavy paw forward, pressing gently into the damp, springy moss. The dripping morning dew falls in rhythmic, soothing droplets from the overhanging vines, striking the stone with a soft patter. With measured, deliberate grace, he draws his limbs inward, seeking out a slight hollow in the rock that has retained a trace of yesterday's warmth. In this quiet twilight of his reign, raw stamina has yielded to accumulated wisdom, and the chill of the ridge is met with the quiet, enduring resilience of a true master of the wild. The awakening unfolds in slow, deliberate increments, governed by the quiet wisdom of an aging physiology. Without the rushed, explosive energy of youth, the senior cat initiates a careful sequence of postural adjustments. His nervous system, finely tuned over a decade of survival, manages the transition from deep sleep to waking consciousness with exceptional metabolic economy. He shifts his weight onto forelimbs that still bear the dense musculature of an apex hunter, though recovery now demands a softer touch. He extends his spine in a long, rolling arch, allowing stiffened vertebrae to realign at their own gentle pace. Each contraction of muscle fiber is intentional, designed to stimulate blood flow back into weary joints without triggering unnecessary caloric expenditure. In these older years, cellular repair operates at a more measured rhythm, making this cautious morning stretch a vital act of physical preservation. He flexes his toes, testing the grip of velvet soft pads against the damp, yielding moss. A low, internal rumble begins deep within his chest, a vibration of contentment and self-regulation that helps warm the air trapped within his dense winter coat. With quiet grace, he alters his angle on the stone, tucking his heavy tail close against his torso to minimize surface exposure to the drifting morning breeze. The cooling air sweeps over the ridge, yet his body responds with refined thermoregulation, drawing warmth inward. He settles once more into the contoured hollow of the rock, finding absolute comfort in stillness as the first pale light begins to touch the damp earth below. Centuries of human lore once painted the solitary male as an endless wanderer, endlessly patrolling boundless perimeters under the cover of night. But true mastery of a vast Pantanal watershed requires an evolution in strategy, driven by the quiet realities of biological senescence. For this senior Jaguar, vast territorial loops are relics of a younger, more wasteful past. Territorial defense no longer demands covering every acre on foot. Instead, it relies on an intimate, hard-earned cartography of the mind. He understands the landscape not as a maze of borders to be physically reaffirmed daily, but as a deeply familiar network of converging game trails, seasonal bottlenecks, and reliable watering holes. His spatial memory acts as an invisible lattice holding his domain together. Rather than burning precious glycogen reserves on fruitless miles of tracking, he practices a calculated, localized occupancy. He lets the landscape come to him. By anchoring himself to this elevated, panoramic ridge, he commands a strategic crossroads of the forest. He knows that capybara families and drifting caiman frequently navigate the winding bends of the river below, funneling predictably through the brush directly beneath his lookout. His energy budget is managed with absolute fiscal precision. Every calorie retained is an investment in longevity. This behavioral shift from active pursuit to stationary ambush represents the pinnacle of predatory adaptation. Experience teaches the aging cat where the forest breathes, where the whispers of movement carry farthest, and how to read the subtle rhythms of the wild without lifting a single paw from the stone. Here, stillness is not surrender, but the ultimate expression of control. Perched securely on the ridge, the jaguar remains entirely motionless, turning his broad, tufted ears toward the faint sounds of the waking floodplain. While his muscles have grown stiff with age, his sensory apparatus remains remarkably uncompromised, a testament to the evolutionary priority of auditory preservation in senior felids. Sound waves ripple across the damp air, carrying vital ecological data directly to his acute, experienced hearing. He registers the high-pitched, papery rustle of distant vegetation far down the slope, instantly translating the acoustic signature into a picture of a foraging band of peccaries. His brain processes the low, rolling murmur of the winter river below, blending it with the fading hum of nocturnal insects and the soft patter of dripping morning dew. Every vibration is catalogued, weighed, and interpreted without a single wasted movement. In the science of aging carnivores, sensory acuity often outlasts raw physical stamina, serving as the ultimate bridge between declining mobility and continued survival. Vision, too, remains sharp in the dim pre-dawn light. His large pupils adjust effortlessly to the shifting shadows beneath the forest canopy, tracking the subtle sway of ferns stirred by the cool winter breeze. He does not need to hunt blindly or chase shadows through the damp undergrowth. The forest speaks to him in a language of frequencies and echoes, painting an intricate, real-time map of the waking world across his consciousness. By simply listening, he gathers all the intelligence he requires, resting his heavy frame upon the cool stone while his senses reach out across the miles, holding his domain together in the quiet dark. As the profound chill of the pre-dawn hours begins to lift, a subtle shift occurs in the atmosphere of the river valley. High above the winding current, the dense gray mist that blanketed the moss-covered ridge slowly thins, parting for the very first amber beams of the morning sun. These initial rays pierce the humid canopy, reaching across the elevated rock face where the senior jaguar rests his heavy frame. For an aging cat, thermoregulation becomes a delicate physiological priority. As winter temperatures drop, metabolic adaptations require conscious energy conservation, and seeking radiant heat is an instinctive mechanism to offset declining internal heat production. As the sunlight strikes the damp stone, the ancient granite begins to absorb and radiate thermal energy directly upward. Sensing this gentle wave of warmth, the jaguar shifts his massive shoulders with deliberate slowness. He inches forward just a few inches, pressing his chest flat against the sun-warmed granite. The transition is immediate and profoundly soothing. The heat seeps deep beneath his tawny fur, penetrating the thickened dermis to soothe the chronic stiffness lingering within his joints and vertebrae. His muscles, which had tightened during the hours of stillness, visibly relax under the influence of the thermal transfer. He closes his amber eyes halfway, surrendering entirely to the comfort of the gathering warmth. There is no need for strenuous exertion or restless pacing. By allowing the environment to restore his core temperature, he preserves vital caloric reserves for the days ahead. Bathed in the soft, golden light of the early winter morning, the great predator finds absolute peace upon his elevated sanctuary, cradled by the quiet rhythm of the warming earth. Content in its secure vantage point, the senior predator lowers its heavy head onto its crossed paws once more. The initial spike of morning warmth has eased the deepest aches, allowing the nervous system to transition smoothly from restorative rest into a state of quiet, unbroken vigilance. This restful vigil requires minimal metabolic output, a crucial evolutionary strategy for an aging felid whose basal metabolic rate dictates a careful balance between rest and survival. He does not need to patrol the vast riverbanks to know the boundaries of his domain. Decades of intimate familiarity with this landscape allow him to manage his territory through sensory preservation rather than exhausting physical movement. His ears occasionally twitch toward the fading hum of nocturnal insects, filtering the familiar sounds of the waking wilderness with effortless precision. The amber light continues to spread across the mossy ridge, drying the remaining droplets of dew and warming the surrounding air. Breathing slowly and deeply, the great cat surrenders to the profound stillness of the winter morning. Every slow inhalation and measured exhalation reinforces a deep, unhurried rhythm, anchoring him securely to the earth. There is no urgency in his stillness, only the quiet dignity earned through a lifetime of endurance. Cradled by the ancient granite and the gentle murmur of the river below, he rests in total harmony with the fading shadows, drifting back into a peaceful, restorative slumber as the new day fully unfolds. A pale, silvery light begins to filter through the dense canopy of the southern Pantanal, heralding the arrival of a cool winter dawn. High above the slow-flowing water, the morning mist hangs suspended in the branches, catching the first faint hues of amber and rose. Within a secluded alcove where the dark forest meets the riverbank, a familiar form stirs. The senior jaguar awakens not with the abrupt, explosive energy of its youth, but with a slow, deliberate grace honed by over a decade of survival. It shifts its weight on a thick, velvety carpet of damp moss, feeling the crisp, refreshing chill of the early air. As core body temperature naturally dips during the cool winter nights, senior endotherms like the jaguar rely on shaded microclimates and insulated resting beds to preserve precious warmth before the sun climbs higher. The great cat exhales a long, warm sigh, its breath forming a faint wisp against the morning chill. Its respiration is deep, measured, and steady, perfectly synchronized with the gentle cadence of the waking wilderness. Around the alcove, the ambient soundscape begins to awaken. Gentle water ripples lap rhythmically against the mudbanks, accompanied by the soft rustling of canopy leaves stirred by a fleeting morning breeze. Far in the distance, the melodic calls of waking birds pierce the quiet, harmonizing with a low, soothing insect hum. With calm, experienced amber eyes, the jaguar gazes out over the glassy surface of the water. There are no territories left to patrol with anxious urgency. No urgent chases required. In this quiet sanctuary, the veteran predator simply exists, held securely within the timeless, breathing rhythm of the ancient floodplains. With amber eyes that have witnessed over a decade of changing seasons, the senior cat gazes out across the glassy, mist-shrouded river. Those luminous eyes, carrying the unique golden sheen of tapetum lucidum that enhances low-light vision, absorb the soft hues of the emerging dawn without a trace of strain. There is no need for the restless patrolling of its younger years, no anxious scent marking along invisible borders. Every gnarled tree trunk, every familiar river bend, and every hidden hunting trail is already deeply etched into its memory, mapped across a lifetime of navigation. Senescence brings a profound shift in priorities. The biological imperative of fierce territorial defense gives way to a conserved energy budget, where every movement is intentional and measured. The jaguar understands this ancient landscape not merely as a domain to rule, but as a living tapestry of which it is an enduring part. Decades of metabolic adaptation have fine-tuned its responses to the rhythms of the Pantanal, allowing the great predator to age with remarkable dignity. In this quiet sanctuary, the mood is one of profound peace and earned tranquility. The heavy skull and powerful musculature, once instruments of relentless pursuit, now rest in a state of harmonious balance with the environment. The jaguar blinks slowly against the rising light, its expression softened by experience. It does not look backward with regret, nor forward with urgency. It simply rests in the absolute present. Surrounded by the timeless pulse of the wetlands, the veteran apex predator remains a seamless thread in the vast, unbroken fabric of the wilderness. Drawn by an instinct for thermal comfort and protection, the jaguar shifts its weight and steps softly into the shaded alcove. Beneath the sprawling, buttressed roots of an ancient fig tree lies a thick, emerald carpet of damp, velvet moss. This natural cushion acts as a gentle insulator against the cool winter air, helping the aging feline regulate its body temperature without expending precious metabolic energy. As a senior adult, maintaining core warmth during the chill of a Pantanal morning is essential, and the sheltered microclimate beneath the roots provides a sanctuary of steady, soothing heat. Lowering its massive head, the great cat settles its heavy, muscular frame onto the yielding earth. Every joint aligns with the contours of the ground, and a long, slow sigh escapes its lungs as the tension of movement melts away. The thick moss cradles its broad chest and scarred shoulders, absorbing the physical weight of a lifetime spent traversing swamps, forests, and flooded savannas. In this quiet alcove, the jaguar is completely integrated with the surrounding elements. The rough, living bark of the tree arches overhead like a cathedral vault, while the earthy scent of damp soil and decaying vegetation fills the cool air. The physical barriers of the alcove block the soft morning wind, wrapping the resting predator in an undisturbed cocoon of absolute stillness. Here, completely sheltered and deeply at ease, the boundaries between skin and soil, animal and earth, begin to soften. The resting jaguar drifts deeper into a restorative slumber, cradled by the very landscape it has shaped and loved across the years. Beyond the shadowy embrace of the fig tree, the vast Pantanal winter dawn unfurls in a tapestry of gentle motion and sound. A soft morning wind stirs the high canopy leaves, sending a rhythmic, whispering cadence drifting down through the branches like a natural lullaby. Against the muddy riverbanks, slow and steady water ripples lap in a hypnotic cadence, echoing the timeless pulse of the seasonal floods that have shaped this land for millennia. Gradually, the wetland awakens around the resting apex predator. High in the waking trees, distant birds begin their morning songs, melodic whistles and soft coos that blend effortlessly with a low, steady insect hum rising from the damp undergrowth. This acoustic ecology creates a protective wall of white noise, a rich bioacoustic tapestry that signals the healthy balance of a thriving ecosystem. In the science of nature, these complex soundscapes reflect biodiversity at its peak, where every frequency, from the rustling foliage to the buzzing pollinators, plays a vital role in maintaining the health of the broader habitat. Unbothered by the rising symphony, the senior jaguar remains motionless in its mossy cradle. The familiar calls of the wild wash over its striped coat, becoming part of the deep, undisturbed tranquility. Each breath the great cat takes rises and falls in time with the gentle rhythm of the river, harmonizing completely with the breathing world outside the roots. Here, suspended in the soothing hum of the waking wilderness, time loses its urgency, dissolving into the quiet, everlasting flow of the awakening morning. As the morning sun slowly climbs higher, its gentle warmth filters through the upper branches, casting soft bars of golden light across the damp forest floor. This subtle shift in temperature aids in thermoregulation, comforting aging joints and easing the senior cat into an even deeper, more profound state of relaxation. In the grand design of the Pantanal, no life stands apart from the whole. The sprawling territories once fiercely patrolled by this solitary predator were never truly owned, but merely borrowed for a season. Through biological senescence, the fierce energy of youth gently transforms into a lasting ecological legacy. Far beyond this shaded alcove, the offspring raised in previous years now roam neighboring ranges. They carry forward the strength, stealth, and resilience of their lineage in an unbroken, eternal chain of life. Every scent mark left on distant trees and every footstep pressed into the muddy banks long ago helped shape the complex behavioral maps of the region. Nature wastes nothing, even as an individual life slows to a tranquil pause. The nutrients and energy that sustained the apex predator dissolve back into the rich alluvial soil, feeding the very roots of the fig trees and nourishing the ground where future generations will walk. The river continues its patient journey toward the distant horizon, carving ancient curves into the South American earth. The great cat rests quietly, completely at peace within the cradle of the wild. All around, the wetlands breathe in and out, a living, pulsing expanse of green and water that stretches out into timelessness. Here, in the quiet heart of the winter dawn, the wild endures, wrapping the resting spirit in a velvet blanket of endless night and everlasting morning. The gentle morning winds quiet now, replaced by a profound and heavy stillness that settles over the water's edge. Within this shaded sanctuary, the senior jaguar surrenders completely to the profound fatigue of a long and storied existence. The heavy eyelids drift closed, shutting out the golden amber of the waking forest in favor of an internal, dreamless peace. In the final stages of senescence, the metabolic fires that once fueled explosive hunts and territorial defense slow to a gentle, steady pilot light. The rhythmic rise and fall of the spotted flank matches the slow, measured pulse of the Pantanal itself, a harmonious synchronization between mortal biology and the eternal rhythms of the earth. The surrounding ecosystem continues its timeless choreography without interruption. Tiny insects hum a low, soothing lullaby near the damp moss, while overhead, the canopy leaves rustle softly in the breath of the passing breeze. Distant birdsong fades into a drowsy quiet, and the gentle water ripples lap rhythmically against the muddy banks, washing over old footprints and smoothing the edges of the shore. The spirit of the great shadow cat dissolves outward, merging seamlessly with the mist, the river, and the vast, breathing wilderness. There is no struggle here, only the profound acceptance of the natural cycle. The currents carry the quiet legacy onward, flowing steadily toward the distant sea, leaving the forest tranquil, balanced, and eternally green. Sleep deepens, wrapping the ancient hunter in the soft, endless embrace of the wild.